It's on a billboard somewhere. TOWKARS.org. That's it. towcars.org.
If you'd like your vehicle donation to help Utah kidney patients in the Beehive State, please use the web address on their billboard, towcars.org, to donate your old car or truck. That's TOWK like kidney, ARS. towcars.org.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. What about those round trips that you plan in advance, which are perfect on your way there and perfect on your way back? Or those meetings with friends for which you make a group chat 3 months before so that nobody or anything is missing? Or your daughter's first birthday party. You planned it with such dedication that instead of the first, it felt like our 15's. The same way you plan each detail for those moments. Start planning to protect you and your loved ones from a natural disaster. Sign up for local weather and emergency alerts. Prepare an emergency kit and make a family communications plan. Protecting your family is the best plan you can make. Get started at ready.gov/plan.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Heather Kelly's in the traffic center.
Well, we still have delays up in Davis County. The worst of it is southbound I-15 between Centerville and Woods Cross. We did have an earlier crash just before Main Street in North Salt Lake. That is cleared, so all the lanes are now open, but these residual delays are behind it. You also have a lot of delays still on the west side belt trying to get around the airport toward I-80. That is due to fog, reduced visibility, but most everyone else seems to be traveling at speed at the moment. Heather Kelly in the KSL Traffic Center.
Today, mostly cloudy. This fog's going to stick around. Hopefully a little hazy sunshine later this afternoon. We're only going to reach into the mid-30s, however. 34, the official forecasted high. Tomorrow, 38 with about a 10% chance of showers. And right now, 27 in Salt Lake City at KSL News Radio. 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories on KSL News Radio.
And good morning, except it's not Dave and Debbie. It is actually me, Leah Murray, alongside my good friend Taylor Morgan.
That's
Taylor,
right,
are you
Leah.
ready for this morning?
I am so ready. And listen, Leah, I'm looking out the window here downtown at KSL News Radio studio, and I can see no mountains, Leah. I'm not sure that we're in Salt Lake City right now.
I feel like we are, but no, you're not wrong, right? I drove down from Ogden today, and I think visibility was maybe half a mile at best, which means everyone's driving really slowly. It took me a little bit longer to get in here, and I like to drive like a Formula One driver on the highway.
You're a
I'm
little aggressive. Doesn't surprise me. Yes.
Driving through this fog made me behave a little bit better. We have got Matt Johnson, KSL meteorologist, in to help us figure out what's going on. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning. Yeah, you were saying it earlier. It kind of feels like Seattle out there.
Yeah, totally. So tell me, first of all, they're reporting it as fog. So
Right.
maybe it's fog or it's kind of inversion-esque. Or can you just tell me, A, like what is it? Is it fog? Is it inversion? What is the difference between them? What is going on?
Yeah, so this is both pollution and fog. Some people like to call it smog. But basically, the inversion layer is the cold air trapped at the valley floor. So anything and everything emitted into that layer stays at the low levels. That includes emissions from cars, factories, your home, but also water vapor. So water vapor has been collecting over the last several days, and now it's super saturated the low level out there and has made a cloud deck right on top of us, which is fog. And so you're kind of getting both out there.
All right, so I love that. It's a cloud deck. So
Yeah.
basically we are in a cloud is what's
Yes.
happening. But does that, anything about what's happening with Utah at all? Like, so I moved here from New York. The best thing about Utah, well, there are many best things, right? But among them was it's not humid.
Our conservative government and balanced budget in the state.
That's totally what I
Leah?
was thinking,
Okay,
and the
perfect.
fry sauce.
We'll get there. Yeah.
But what I really love was like it's never humid. Does that make sense? So you just
Right.
never had like the effects of moist air because it just wasn't happening. Is this any kind of sign that we are getting, like wetter in Utah? Is that why we're getting that weight, like you said, that cloud deck happening?
Right. Yeah. No, definitely not a trend towards that way. This is something that happens in the wintertime. It doesn't happen every winter, but when it does, it's a sign that we've been in an inversion layer for quite some time, because when we get this cloud deck, this low-level fog, it's because we've been locked in and the water vapors had time to come out of the soil, the snow melt, and the lake. And so that's totally saturated this layer. Yeah, it would be nice to have it as a trend, because that would mean more water for us.
Matt, tell me about this. Is there any relationship between this layer, this smog inversion layer down in the valley, potentially affecting higher temperatures up at altitude? I'm just looking here on my screen, and I see that right now in the valley here in Salt Lake City, it's about 29 degrees.
Right.
I'm looking up at Alta, at the top of Little Cottonwood Canyon right now. They are reporting 39 degrees up at Mid-Mountain, up at the ski resorts. What's happening here?
Yep, and that's exactly why they call it an inversion.
Okay.
It stems from the full word temperature inversion, right? Because we typically expect the air to cool with elevation. It's warming with elevation. The reason for that is we've got cold air trapped at the valley, can't move anywhere, there's no wind, and the mountains lock it in. But what happens is we've got high pressure up above, and so what we should be feeling is what they have up at Alta, but we're not, because we're locked in that low-level inversion.
And it's melting all the snow at the resorts. This is not a good scenario.
Not great.
Matt, what can we look forward to? What is going to fix this?
Right. And, looking at the 7-day forecast and model trends, we look to stay locked in this at least through Friday. Next best chance to mix it out would be Saturday, but not all models are saying yes on that.
So I was listening to you this morning as I was driving in and behaving very well on the highway. And I feel like you were saying it's going to roll out by the afternoon, and then it kind of comes back in the morning, and then it rolls out in the afternoon.
Right.
And that's the fog I'm talking about, and then not being able to see. One, tell us if I've got that right. Like, am I saying what you said? And then two, why? What is that about? Does that make sense? Like, why does it kind of go in and out?
Yeah. So the immersion layer, everything underneath that layer, kind of does what it does unaffected by the sun. So what's happening is you're getting the temperature drops at night, and whenever the temperature gets cooler, it gets closer and closer to the dew point, which is almost always less than the actual temperature. When they touch, you get fog. That typically happens at night and in the morning, because that's when your cooler temperatures are. But when that temperature begins to rise as the sun comes up, you separate those, and you no longer have the fog, so it recedes to the more moist areas, which is the Great Salt Lake, Utah Lake, and sometimes the West Desert. And so it'll recede, it'll ebb and flow, but it only flows when you get those colder temperatures, so it can reform.
Does that so just talk to me about my teenage child who's driving around, right? Like,
Leah, don't pretend like your teenagers are worse drivers than you.
Oh, they're not, but I'm worried more about her than I am myself. I mean, so when we're thinking about being on alert in driving, or we're thinking about being on alert with our behaviors, right? You would want to be, does that make sense? Slowing down, adding more time in the mornings and the evenings.
Correct.
But maybe in the afternoons, a more normal,
Yep. In the afternoon, it's that level's gonna rise, or it's gonna recede out to the lake, and you'll have better visibility during the days.
Matt Johnson, KSL meteorologist, here with us in studio. Matt, we all know it's a very, very busy time of year for travel. Is this having an impact at the Salt Lake City International Airport right now?
Oh, most definitely. I have a friend that's a CFI, certified flight instructor, out at Bountiful Flight Park, and he's in communication and works with the actual airport, international airport, I should say. And what makes it difficult for them is these pilots are coming in. They've got first deck of clouds to come through today. That's higher up. Then a second level that's right on top of their landing pad. So usually a regular cloud, a deck of clouds is 20,000 feet up. So you come through that, and then you're fine. Your approach is clear. But they're coming down, and the fog's 100 feet, 200 feet off the ground. So as they're trying to land, they're coming into this blind deck of clouds. So I would not doubt it if it inhibits flights today.
Wow. Okay. Well, something to keep in mind.
But so what does that mean? That people are flying in? I'm thinking like turbulence, right? So when you say it's a cloud deck, like legit, does that make sense? Like they're hitting weather. They're hitting weather all the way down.
Yeah. potential turbulence through those cloud decks. But I'd say the biggest thing that's going to delay flights is having to mess with the de-icing, and then also just blind landing, right? Using instrumentation right on approach, and when you're coming down to that runway, it's dangerous stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Now, really quickly, also on the roads, I know we've been talking a lot about driving and giving ourselves extra time and everything, not only for line of sight, for distance, Matt, but does this moisture freeze? Does it make our roads and our freeways more slippery?
Yeah, that's a good point you bring up. We have been seeing patchy areas of freezing fog, which is where the atmosphere is so saturated, it's actually precipitating ice crystals.
Oh, wow.
So it's not really like a storm, right, that it's snowing,
Yeah.
but it's so moist that you're getting ice crystals, very fine crystals, that come down and hit the ground. And so we saw that this morning, freezing fog in some spots, but most of it was regular. Just regular fog.
Yeah.
But those patches caught people off guard, and they're going 70, and then they hit this patch. So
Take your time,
Yeah,
everyone.
that wasn't me.
Slow down.
Maybe it was me a little bit.
Yeah,
That's right.
take it easy.
So Matt Johnson, KSL meteorologist, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Welcome.
All right, stay with us, listeners, because I think we're going to stick with this story a little bit and talk about air quality and what this fog is doing to it.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Finally, Friday. Now you can hear Dave and Dujanovic 5 days a week.
Starting in January, Dave and Debbie will be on Fridays at 9.
Then the movie show from 11 to 1.
On KSL News Radio. On Christmas Eve, Build-A-Bear.
I would not have thought in a million years that you were a Build-A-Bear kind of guy.
A Christmas memory from KSL News Radio.
I'm an 8 or 9-year-old child, and the only thing I really, really want for Christmas is a Barbie townhouse. The only thing I did not get for Christmas was a Barbie townhouse.
Did you get coal instead? Be a better kid, you'll get the Barbie townhouse.
No.
Merry Christmas from Dave and Debbie and everyone at KSL News Radio.
You know, people can tell you that you're special, but Hercules Credit Union puts words into action. Let Hercules Credit Union treat you extra special with this limited time special deal. Open a new checking account and Hercules Credit Union will upgrade you to a premier status checking account free of monthly fees. Also, receive $150 cash when you open a premier checking account with direct deposit and Visa debit card, and $100 more when you open any type of loan product or a Visa credit card within 30 days of account opening. Your account has ultimate identity theft protection, travel benefits and perks, cellular care coverage, accidental damage, gas, and grocery gift cards. And yeah, there's a whole lot more. Start at HerculesCU.com and learn how to qualify for a free premier checking account for a limited time, because you are special. HerculesCU.com. Hercules Credit Union, growing stronger together. All accounts insured to $250,000 by NCUA.
My little brother's friends have been camped out at our place for 2 days straight. 3. It's because of the Xfinity 10G network. Internet that can handle a house full of screens at once, with basically no interruptions. And it's only getting faster. When I was their age, internet like this was a pipe dream.
You sound like my grandpa.
Please go home.
The next generation 10G network only from Xfinity. The future starts now. Now through March 21st, new customers can get 1.2 gigabit internet on the Xfinity 10G network for just $25 a month for 2 years with no annual contract and Wi-Fi equipment included when you add Xfinity Mobile with unlimited data at regular rates. Go to Xfinity.com/10G, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today. Requires paperless bill and auto-pay with stored bank account. Restrictions apply. Taxes and fees extra. Xfinity Mobile requires Xfinity Internet. After promo, regular rates apply to internet service and Wi-Fi equipment. Actual speeds vary.
Hi, this is Doug Ryder, and I've already mentioned that I saw Elf on one of the opening nights at Hale Center Theater, but the family did not go because we had a special event planned for December, and the other night we took the whole gang to see Elf, and it was delightful. As a matter of fact, I caught things that I missed the first time around. Dee looked over at me and said, "Check to your right," and I looked over there. We were on the last row, and some little kid there, 7 or 8 years old, was just grooving to Buddy the Elf every time he was dancing. dancing and singing. It was a delight. And there are still some tickets left. As a matter of fact, 115 shows sold out on Elf. Tickets for Elf make the perfect stocking stuffer. And then you can see it maybe a week later because there are shows on January 3rd, 4th, and 5th to see Elf. And a few tickets for A Christmas Carol. Season tickets for next year would be perfect from Hale Center Theater. Go to hct.org. And don't forget Clue and Fiddler on the Roof get underway right after the first of the year at Hale Center Theater.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 in the morning, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Tim Hughes. First, Ruby Franke is expected to enter a plea deal in court today. Second, more people than ever are visiting the Great Salt Lake, and it could be because rumors are it's drying up. And third, the fog across the Wasatch Front will stick around for the rest of the day. So hopefully we'll reach a high of 34 with a little hazy sunshine later, and right now it's 27 degrees in Salt Lake City. Back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Welcome back to Dave and Dujanovic here on KSL News Radio. This morning, it is Morgan and Murray.
Oh, I like that.
Filling in today for Dave and Debbie. My name is Taylor Morgan. I'm a local political consultant, lobbyist, partner at Morgan May Public Affairs. Also a host of KSL at Night, weekdays between 7 and 9 p.m. here on KSL News Radio. And my co-host today, filling in with me, is Professor Dr. Leah Murray.
That's right.
Professor of Political Science at Weber State University, Director of the Olin Walker Center.
And Institute.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Well, Leah, I always enjoy hosting with you, also a host on KSL at Night. Now we're going to get into a segment. We're following up on the fog, the smog, and we're going to get into the air quality side of this. And maybe, perhaps, hopefully, Leah, you and I can maybe butt heads a little bit. You and I come from different sides of the political spectrum. We often disagree, but we do so agreeably, I believe. But let's get into this next segment and talk about how this, what we're looking at outside the window here between us and the mountains that we can't see, is affecting our health.
Yeah, so let's talk about air quality. And to help us do this better, because you and I could ramble on, but I don't know that either of us are experts on air quality.
I'm somewhat.
We have got Bryce Bird, Director of the Division of Air Quality. Welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning.
All right, so Bryce, can you tell us about air quality kind of generally? Because I feel like last year this wasn't even something we talked about because we had so much snow, like weather was just blowing the air clean all the time. But this year, a couple of times already, I'm like, oh, I'm chewing air today, right? Like it just was in my mouth. Like I could just tell the air quality was bad. So give us not just like what's happening with the fog, but give us kind of the general setup. How has our air quality been so far this season?
Yeah, I can start with last winter. Of course, we did see a train of storms that came through last winter that did help mix the valley out. And one of the biggest friends that we have to avoiding our temperature inversions that cause the buildup of air pollution in our valleys is storm fronts that come and help clean the valley out. So that mixing helps to distribute the air, keep it from settling at the valley floors. And of course, what we're most concerned about is the pollutants that are trapped under the inversion layer with us that live here in the valley. Last winter was an excellent winter when it came to air quality because of that. This winter, we're seeing more and more of these long patterns of high pressure that moves into the area. The cold air at the valley floor is stuck there until the next storm comes through. And of course, we're in another period now that we're looking for probably the rest of this week where we're under these inversion conditions where we expect the air pollution to continue to build and impact our public health.
Bryce, I'm looking right now on the website DEQ air.utah.gov. This is the environmental quality. Actually, I'm looking on the interactive map right now. Can you tell us a bit about some of these tools and how Utahns can understand air quality where they live?
Sure. When it comes to the air pollution forecast and the current conditions, that page is just air.utah.gov. And at that page, you can see different monitors that operate along the Wasatch Front and throughout the state and see what those current conditions are, and also health advisories. So we provide information, a 3-day forecast that gives the direction that air pollution is going. That is done for two purposes. One is to help us take action to reduce the individual impact or the contribution that we have to air pollution. So if we know that air pollution levels are building, that we can maybe plan to telework the next day or plan a carpool, use public transportation so that we're avoiding the emissions that come from our vehicles. And so that 3-day forecast is important as a planning tool for the next few days to help us take action to reduce our contribution. The other information that's provided there are, of course, the current conditions. And with that, there's health messaging that is associated with each level of air pollution that we reach here in the valleys. And that is the air clearing index. It's a color-coded index that starts at green for good, yellow for moderate. At the orange level, that's when we start impacting sensitive groups. That includes people who are elderly, those with compromised respiratory systems, or young people that are developing and because of their activity levels tend to take in more of these air pollutants. And then as we go up in the scale, more and more health advisories come out with higher levels of air pollution where we impact everybody's health. And when you get up into the hazardous air pollution, of course, even recommendations that people stay indoors, avoid actual exposure at all to the outdoor air.
All right, so Bryce Bird, Director of the Division of Air Quality, tell me, so I'm looking over Taylor's shoulder at his computer, and I feel like it's orange. So does that mean we're all supposed to stay home, even if we're, I don't have one of the sensitivities you talked about, or are we still just in the phase where we're like, right, people who are sensitive should be really careful, but other people probably could go about their business?
Yes, the latter. Sensitive populations, again, those that I mentioned before, are encouraged to reduce prolonged or heavy exertion outdoors. So maybe it wouldn't be a day to exercise outdoors where you're bringing that extra air pollution into your lungs. Take more breaks, do less intensive activities, and really watch for the symptoms. Trust your body. If you're experiencing tightness in your throat, your chest, some of those impacts of those air pollutants, that's a good indication to maybe move those activities indoors or avoid the level of exertion. Some of those people in those sensitive groups maybe aren't as aware of the information, so we need to protect them. And so schools move their recess activities indoors. Of course, sports practices wouldn't happen outdoors. Things like that. So, right now we're at the unhealthy for sensitive groups, but it's wise not to bring these particles into our lungs because it does impact our health over time.
All right, and you talked about it's got like a planning, right? So you were saying what you should do is kind of get into this website every day. I'm looking for like the behavior move, right? For all of us who are listening. So hop on this website in the morning, see what the planning is. And then it's like, I'm not driving to work or I'm trying to use mass transit or, you know what I mean? Like, can you give us, what can we do? Because I know it's about high pressure and to a certain extent, humans can't do much. But what is in our control that we can do to help protect our sensitive, our friends and family and the people who live around in our community who are sensitive to this air?
When we have high air pollution days, we collect an emissions inventory. So basically, we look at all the sources of air pollution here in the valley. I'll use this as an example, and then attribute percentages to different components of that inventory. Still, for us, our vehicles are the largest component, and that's where an individual vehicle, especially a new 2017 or newer vehicle, is very clean compared to an older vehicle. But when you get 1 million drivers driving 55 million miles a day, that does add up quickly. And so the actions that we're calling for are small steps that people can take to lessen their impact. So driving the newest vehicle you have, avoiding idling, because there you're getting the pollution but not the benefit of transportation. Cold starts are another important component. Once the engine is up and warm and especially the emissions controls, the catalytic converter and other things in the car have adjusted and are operating correctly, the emissions go down. And so if we can avoid cold starts by chaining trips together, so if we're going to go out and run errands, maybe save them up for a couple days and then do them all in a long chain with a warm engine versus a cold start each time you start up that vehicle and go out. Or again, putting that off until the weekend, hopefully when it clears out, planning ahead so that we can avoid some of those, especially cold starts, older vehicle usage, and that's some of the things that we can do as individuals. Turning the thermostat down can help a little bit.
Yeah.
Our paints and solvents we use are also a component of the air pollution mix that collects in the valleys. And heavy industry is also encouraged to optimize their production, avoid taking things offline, or especially if pollution control equipment offline. So all these things are all these activities that we can take, especially when we're aware of the conditions. And of course, it doesn't take a website to tell us that today. We can look out the window and see that the air pollution is trapped in the valley.
No doubt about it. Bryce Bird, Director of the Division of Air Quality for the state of Utah. Thank you so much for joining us here on KSL News Radio.
Oh, you're welcome.
Listeners, the website, and this really is a great website. Get on this website and bookmark it now. You're going to want to have access to this information probably throughout the winter.
Yeah,
Leah.
what I love is like when I used to drop my kids off at elementary school, there'd be like a big poster in the front window.
Yeah.
And if it was green, then recess would be outside. If it was yellow, you know what I mean? Like he was just saying, they were kind of signaling to the whole community, this is how the air is doing today.
And they have a 3-day forecast here on the website. And the website is air.utah.gov. A lot of very helpful tools, great information there. Ways to make sure that you keep yourself and your loved ones and others safe when being outside this winter. So again, air.utah.gov. Thanks to Bryce Bird for joining us.
All right, Taylor, after the break, let's have a conversation about local politics, which is what we like to talk about the most.
Can't wait, Leah. Stay right here.
9:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Tim Hughes. Let's look at some of our top stories for this half hour. A YouTuber is expected to agree to a plea deal in court later this morning. Ruby Franke will appear in court at 11 o'clock. Over the weekend, her attorneys issued a statement indicating she plans to enter a plea agreement. Franke faces child abuse charges alongside a former business partner. KSL TV's Shelby Lofton is in southern Utah for the hearing, and we'll get an update coming up on Utah's Noon News. The Great Salt Lake has been getting a lot more visitors over the last few years, and some think it's because of the threat of the lake drying up.
We've seen the tourism double here since the beginning of the pandemic. We've seen a 40% increase just this year alone.
Great Salt Lake State Park Manager Dave Shearer tells KSL TV the lake actually had restaurants, resorts, and other attractions on its shores before World War II, and he thinks that kind of interest could be returning. Our top national story this hour from ABC News: railroad crossings into the U.S. are closed because of the surge in migration across our southern border.
Social media is filled with terrifying images of hundreds of people, including families with small children, riding on top of railroad freight cars racing across Mexico. Last Tuesday, about 1,000 migrants arrived that way in Juarez across the Rio Grande from El Paso. Customs and Border Protection is closing 3 railroad bridges into the U.S. to free up agents to process newly arrived migrants.
Yeah, it's ABC's Jim Ryan reporting. The affected crossings are in Arizona and Texas. Your money at this moment, the Dow continues to be in positive territory. It's up almost 87 points now. That's 0.2%. The S&P percentage-wise doing better. It's up 0.5%. On the plus side by 23, and the NASDAQ is up about 0.4% or 57 points this hour. Coming up, how long will this haze and fog stick around? We'll find out with your forecast next. KSL News Time, 9:32.
We have enough people running around Broadcast House at 4 in the morning to field a football team.
Producers, reporters, the traffic team, and us.
This is Tim and Amanda.
Join us each morning from 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Patrick was way behind on his IRS taxes.
I was in way over my head. The total amount ended up being somewhere just over $30,000. $30,000.
Then the IRS came to collect.
Started getting letter after letter. A lien had been filed against me. They were going to basically hang me completely out to dry.
He had to do something.
That's when I reached out to Optima Tax Relief.
Patrick's life quickly got a lot easier.
It was very easy, pretty much hands off. They picked up the ball and ran with it.
And how'd it go?
I couldn't believe it. I had to ask 2 or 3 times. I saved an incredible amount of money.
How does Patrick feel about Optima?
Couldn't be happier. They definitely helped me. Optima Tax Relief, the best place to call. They're the best in the business.
Do what Patrick did and call Optima Tax Relief for a free consultation. Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Give the best gift a Jazz fan can get. Tickets to a Jazz game. Or treat yourself with our holiday ticket packs. Getting a pack not only gets you to a game. With every ticket purchase, you can get $15 in Jazz notes for in-arena concessions on merch at the team store. Plus, each ticket comes with a ticket to a Salt Lake City Stars game. Get your tickets now by calling or texting 801-355-DUNK. Or by visiting UtahJazz.com. Happy holidays from the Utah Jazz.
Introducing Yes, Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. We're bringing all of Utah's favorite HVAC, plumbing, and electrical brands under one roof. Whether it's a small clog or a larger mainline sewer drain issue, the experienced technicians at Yes are ready to solve all of your drain problems. Take advantage of our 83 or It's Free mainline drain clearing special. Feel secure knowing the trusted professionals at Yes guarantee that if we can't clear it, you don't pay for it. Visit theyesmancan.com for details, terms, and conditions.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Jason, how's it going out there?
Well, it's going pretty good, Tim. About an hour ago, we had an accident causing emergency traffic up in the North Salt Lake area. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. But now it's we've hit the magical 9 o'clock hour and everything is clear. So southbound I-15 coming out of Davis County, no problems at all into the Salt Lake Valley. Likewise, if you are northbound down in Utah County, you're not going to find any problems at all up through the Salt Lake Valley. It's free and clear all the way into Salt Lake City. Remember, there is some fog around in places, so definitely when you get into that fog, reduce your speed because you have reduced visibility. And the roads are a little bit wet, but everything seems to be moving along quite nicely. I'm Jason Jones in the KSL Traffic Center.
Morning fog making way for cloudy skies and a high of 34. We've got more fog overnight, so repeat performance tomorrow. 27 for the low. Tomorrow looks similar with a high of 38, and your best chance for fog and haze to clear out likely to happen on Saturday, with about a 40% chance of precipitation of one form or another coming our way. Right now, these temperatures and these conditions haven't changed much. Foggy and 27 degrees in Salt Lake City. At KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Except this morning we are rebranding as Morgan and Murray because Taylor and I are filling in for Dave and Debbie. Thank you so much for being with us. Taylor, I was listening on the ride in to Debbie and Tim, right? So this morning was the morning news.
Yep.
And one of our favorite KSL News Radio reporters, Peter Johnston, had an awesome story, I thought, about what was going on. Well, I don't even know what race it is, man, because it's like CD3, but it's also kind of the Senate race and like
the U.S. Senate race.
Yeah,
there's a lot of speculation right now.
Yeah, a lot of
Leah,
speculation.
I think where you're going here, the candidate filing period for local offices, for federal offices like the U.S. Senate seat, also congressional offices, that filing period is officially open on January 2nd.
Right.
Between
right
January 2nd and 8th. However, over the last few weeks, Leah, we have seen a flurry of all kinds of announcements, exploratory committee announcements that are a soft announcement leading up to a potentially formal announcement. There's so much speculation happening right now about who might be running for what seat. And top of the mind is the U.S. Senate seat to succeed Senator Mitt Romney, who has announced he will not be seeking re-election. Right. We know that already. We have Riverton Mayor Trent Staggs in the race. We have former Utah House Speaker Brad Wilson has been in the race, a number of other candidates. But there's been a lot of speculation about Congressman John Curtis is going to run for this U.S. Senate seat. He has yet to say that, make it official with an announcement. But again, so much speculation because if he does run, then we have a domino cascading
We've got an
effect.
open seat over here in CD3.
That's exactly right.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
So I grabbed Peter Johnston and made him come in and talk with us for this segment.
Who
Taylor.
looks like a human poinsettia
He
right
does
now.
look like a poinsettia.
I can't tell if this is like a
I can't
Hawaiian.
believe you're saying this on the air.
This is like a Christmas Hawaiian shirt, Peter. I don't know where you shop, but hopefully your parents are going to get you some clothes for Christmas.
Taylor, I was so jealous of your polo game. I kind of had to do something, so I went to Nordstrom.
Fair enough. Okay.
All right, we're not gonna talk. We're not gonna shame you for your clothes choices, Peter Taylor. Don't do that to him. Tell us what's going on with this story.
Okay, so you guys summed it up pretty well, but honestly, what's going on is that there's kind of how do I say this? It's centering on some uncertainty around what John Curtis is going to do. That's like the name of this TV show. What's he going to do? And there's a new poll out, this was reported by the Salt Lake Tribune, that's showing that in a potential election race, a primary between him, former House Speaker Brad Wilson, and Riverton Mayor Trent Staggs, these are three of the top names in right now, he would blow him out of the water. According to the numbers that were reported, he's got 40% of likely Republican voters here in Utah. 43% don't know who they would vote for, and then the rest are just kind of split between those other two, right? Now, here's what's interesting, right? This poll, it's not like from Deseret News, Hinckley Institute, any of these kind of usual places that we get our polls we report here.
Yeah.
It's from a group called the Conservative Values for Utah Political Action Committee. And so I did some digging, and I was like, I remember that name, and I looked it up, and sure enough, on their website, they had some ties to John Curtis. So let's play that campaign ad that they had on there.
We need a strong conservative senator to fight for our values. Tell John Curtis Utah needs him to run for the U.S. Senate.
Pretty punchy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now this ad again, Peter.
Is that the very pretty ad that was on
It is.
TV?
And this is ad that was done again by Peter. You said the conservative voters values. It's hard to keep track of all these wonderful words that are typically in PAC names, but this PAC is not affiliated with nor coordinating with John Curtis or any John Curtis campaign.
Right.
We do know that this PAC is led or potentially founded by some former prominent Senator Romney campaign staffers. We can't quite go on the record with names yet, Peter, because I know you're still digging into this.
Mm-hmm.
But we do know that these are some Romney folks that are really doing everything they can to be supportive of and to help encourage Representative John Curtis to get into this race. Now, Peter, I'll go on the record right now and say I believe John Curtis is going to run for the U.S. Senate. He is going to get in and make it official the first week of January. So, unfortunately, we're just going to have to wait until that's official. And in the meantime, everyone else is in the lurch. There will be, I believe, an open seat for this third district.
Right.
We know already we have one elected official, State Senator Mike Kennedy from Alpine, who has already registered an exploratory committee for the third district. Have we heard of any other names running for the third district?
Well, one name that is present but not talked about nearly enough, I don't think, is Roosevelt Mayor, I believe it's R.J. Byrd. He's thrown some significant money into this race, so he's already in it. In terms of other people who are running, I haven't heard rumored names. But what I will say, building off what you just said, Taylor, with the whole, what we've heard about potentially ex-Romney staffers working behind the scenes to make this happen, it falls in line with the history of this seat in particular. Because if you'll remember, Senator Orrin Hatch, this came out in Romney's biography that just came out, Romney: A Reckoning, that he literally wrote to Romney. He called him and said, I want you to run for my seat. And he was basically kind of pushing, trying to choose a successor. So it'd be interesting to see if something similar might be happening here. But we don't know that for sure. Like you said, this is a PAC that's unaffiliated. What I can tell you is the timeline. So here's the basic timeline for people to know. John Curtis was expressing interest about this back in September. He came out and he's like, yep, very interested. Then what happened was just a week or two later, House Speaker Brad Wilson actually did a big announcement event before Romney even announced that he was not going to run for re-election.
Right.
And then around that time, October 2nd-ish, John Curtis says, you know what, I think I should focus on my current seat. That's what's most important, right? But then these TV ads started getting run end of October, around Halloween time.
Okay.
And lo and behold, a few days later, John Curtis comes out with a statement saying, I have heard a, quote, drumbeat of Utah's political support asking me to run. And so he's really considering, and like you said, it's looking pretty likely he's going to dip into this race.
And here we have this new poll, of course, that was paid for by this same political action committee, showing that if John Curtis were to get in the race, he would potentially be at what, 40%, I believe, was the poll?
Yeah.
Peter, we haven't seen the full crosstabs or top lines, and as someone who does polls, I'm always skeptical of any poll and its methodology until I have all of the data in front of me. However, just on the surface, it appears to have a decent sample size, has a decent margin of error. This is done by Guidance Strategies, a reputable pollster out of Boise, Idaho. So even though I tend to be skeptical on all polling until I know everything about it, it appears on the surface to be legitimate. I'm not surprised by the name ID that John Curtis would have that advantage potentially in the race at this point.
Let me just push on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Being fully aware that I also haven't seen any of the data, but it is a poll of primary voters. Taylor, do you think that matters? So, right, the first route is through convention. This is not delegates to that convention. This is primary, likely primary voters.
Yeah.
My question is on that method, right? Does maybe a Wilson do better in a convention than a Curtis? Like, are we missing
It's a
that
good
big
question.
first step? Yeah.
Certainly Utah's path to the primary election ballot. We have the dual path, right? A candidate can get on a ballot for either any major party via signatures and or convention. John Curtis won at convention last time without doing signatures.
Right. Would he do signatures in this race?
I don't know.
Yeah,
that would be a great question for the to be announced John Curtis for U.S. Senate campaign. And when and if they do finally announce, Leah, we will ask them the question.
And I want to jump in here just for a sec. I want to reiterate that in this poll, nearly half said they don't know. And it was just focusing on those three. It wasn't considering Mike Kennedy. Mike Kennedy is going to be a very interesting person in this race if he does decide to enter, because he was in the last one against Romney. And it was a surprisingly tight primary. A lot of folks in that caucus system that you were just talking about, Leah, I think it ended up being something like 48% to like 51%. And then Romney kind of had to duke that out. Yeah. And then in the general, he obviously did better. But
anything can happen. It's going to be a wide open race. It could get crowded. Listeners, stay with us, because coming up next, we are going to get into another race that is heating up, and that is for Salt Lake County Mayor. Stay right here.
Dave and Dujanovic.
We know Utah relies on KSL for balance and fair treatment.
We provide news and analysis from all sides.
Utah's Morning News from 5 to 9.
Dave and Debbie, 9 to noon on KSL News Radio.
Pelvic congestion syndrome, or pelvic venous congestion, is an important but often overlooked cause of chronic pelvic pain. It's estimated that up to 30% of patients with chronic pelvic pain may actually suffer from a symptomatic pelvic venous disorder. IVC, the leading interventional vascular and vein center in Utah for over 15 years, is here to help. Typical symptoms of pelvic venous congestion include dull achiness and heaviness in the pelvis, often made worse by prolonged standing. Well, it can often be successfully treated with a minimally invasive procedure called embolization. Pelvic venous embolization requires little or no downtime and is performed in an outpatient setting. Nearly 85% of women treated experience significant relief of their symptoms. If you suffer from the symptoms of pelvic venous congestion, let the experts at IVC help. Visit ivein.com for more or call 801-379-6700 today. As IVC has been saying for years, life starts when the pain stops.
Ho, ho, ho! This is Denta Claus from PC Laptops. Would you like to save massive money this holiday season, but don't want to have an anxiety attack fighting crowds? Don't throw out that old computer. We can transform that old computer into high-speed goodness, no matter what brand it is. Just bring in your computer for a free diagnostic and cleaning. We're so awesome at making computers faster that if we can't fix or upgrade your computer, we'll buy it from you. We have brand new lifetime warranty desktop computers starting at only $29 a month. Plus, we'll transfer all your data, your pictures, your documents to your new PC Laptops computer at absolutely no charge, 100% free. To make it impossible to resist, we're doing 0 interest on any PC Laptops computer until 2025. That's a long time for 0 interest. OAC, just check us out at PCLaptops.com. That's PCLaptops.com, where we love you.
Imagine how inconvenient your life would be without power. No lights, no refrigeration, no heating or cooling, and no electronics. But with a Generac home standby generator, you'll have the power when you need it most. Generac generators automatically provide backup after sensing a power outage, so your life goes on uninterrupted. Schedule a free quote today with Genco Generators, your premier Generac service dealer in Utah. Call 801-295-0872 or online at gencogenerators.net.
Do you worry about how much someone drinks?
Do you feel angry or depressed most of the time? Do you feel neglected or unloved?
Do you feel you attract people who tend to be compulsive or abusive?
Do you have money problems because of someone else's drinking?
Are you afraid or embarrassed to bring your friends home?
Do you feel that if the drinker loved you, she or he would stop drinking?
If you answered yes to any of these questions, you are not alone.
More than half of all adults have a family history of alcoholism.
Not everyone trapped by alcohol is an alcoholic.
Families and friends are suffering too.
Al-Anon
and Alateen can help. Call 1-866-200-0223 or visit alanon.org/help.
I don't remember every gift I got for Christmas. I'm more apt to remember the Christmas gifts I didn't get.
A Christmas Wish from KSL News Radio.
I wish my perspective was different as a child. And I'm not trying to beat up on myself here, but I do wish that I had a better understanding as a child that Christmas gifts did not grow on trees. And mom and dad had to come up with a lot of money all at once.
As kids, we don't know that.
We
don't understand that.
I did not know that. Time has taught me a lot about the value of Christmas not being the gifts.
So often, it's the records that are being played. It's that hot chocolate, the memories that last as much as anything.
I still want the Barbietown house, though.
Merry Christmas from Dave and Debbie and everyone at KSL News Radio.
Social Security is with you through life's journey from birth to retirement. As your life changes year to year, so do your needs. For over 80 years, Social Security has helped to meet your needs and is committed to improving access to the services that make a difference in your life. Today, you can verify your earnings, estimate your future benefits, apply for retirement, manage your benefits, and even change your address, all from the comfort of your home. Social Security's online services help put you in control with secure access to your information anytime, anywhere, allowing you to spend more time with family, friends, or simply just enjoying the day. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow. See what you can do online at socialsecurity.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Tim Hughes. First, Ruby Franke is expected to agree to a plea deal this morning in a hearing in southern Utah. The former YouTube star is facing child abuse charges. Second, Utah is once again atop a list of states ranking their charitability. And third, Sandra Day O'Connor's casket has arrived at the Supreme Court, where she will lie in repose ahead of her funeral on Wednesday. We'll look for a high today of 34 degrees. Foggy conditions out there, 27 this hour. Back to David Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Or Morgan and Murray.
Just for today.
Just for
Leah.
today. Taylor and I are filling in for Dave and Debbie, and hopefully we'll do, them justice. We'll do a good job for your morning listening on KSL. All right, so we just wrapped up having a conversation about what's happening in the Senate race, what's happening potentially in the CD3 race, but what we maybe have happening in Salt Lake County is a mayor race. So, Taylor, let me just ask you. I don't live in Salt Lake County, so I want to be clear. I have zero dog in any of this fight. I feel like isn't the answer whoever is the Democrat wins? Isn't that a Salt Lake County like truth? But
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and I think that is historically a pretty fair assumption. However, if you look at the demographics and particularly voter registration and party affiliation numbers in Salt Lake County, Leah, it's very, very different than what most people, I think, would expect.
Because it's different from the city.
It is very different. Salt Lake County wide is about 42% of all registered voters in Salt Lake County are Republicans, Leah. Only 21% of registered voters in Salt Lake County are Democrats, and about 30% are unaffiliated or independent voters. So Salt Lake County has become far more purple or even red, I think, than many of us fully understand.
Right, and that's so interesting because I think it's important to note when we talk about pockets of Democrats in the state, right, we always kind of say Salt Lake County, but those numbers seem to put that.
It's really more Salt Lake City than it is Salt Lake County, and there has been so much growth in particularly the southwest corner of Salt Lake County, and a lot of that growth has been a more conservative residents, and that has been reflected in the numbers of increasing numbers of affiliated registered Republicans in Salt Lake County.
Right. So I wanted to say that we reached out to Jenny Wilson, current Salt Lake County mayor, and she didn't get back to us in time for this segment. So we wanted to talk about it. And I think it kind of makes sense maybe to think about, because I like how you're saying it doesn't feel obvious. Does that make sense? Like it feels like there's something happening
there
here.
Could be a real opportunity for a credible Republican candidate running against the incumbent Democratic mayor, Salt Lake County Mayor Jenny Wilson. There could be an open door here, a real opportunity for a viable Republican challenger to actually finally win the Salt Lake County mayor seat. And so wanted to bring on Aaron Ryder, a Salt Lake City-based attorney who has registered an exploratory committee with Salt Lake County indicating that she is seriously considering a run to challenge Democratic Mayor Jenny Wilson in 2024. Now, to be fully transparent and disclose, Leah, I do own a political consulting firm here in Utah called Morgan May Public Affairs. My firm has in the past consulted Aaron Ryder in a previous political run. And so I want to be very upfront and very transparent about that. And I'll let you, Leah, ask Aaron kind of any political questions here, just so there's no conflict. But just to be transparent to disclose that. With that said, Aaron Ryder, welcome to KSL News Radio. And can you tell us why you are considering a run to challenge Jenny Wilson for Salt Lake County mayor next year?
Yeah, thank you, Taylor and Leah, for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. I, with few exceptions, mostly for college and grad school, I've lived my whole life in Salt Lake County, and I love this county. But over the past several years, I've watched the county go downhill as a result of bad policies and even worse leadership. Most people don't realize this, but Jenny Wilson has been in county leadership for nearly 2 decades, either as a member of the county council or as county mayor. That's incredible. I mean, there's a reason that our elected officials don't sit for 20-year terms, right? At some point, you become out of touch with the people who put you there, and you lose your effectiveness as an elected official. And so I think you can see, some of the bad policies and the things that are really affecting the county right now are probably attributable to stagnant leadership and out-of-date ideas. And so that's part of why I'm considering running. As you mentioned, Taylor, I'm an attorney. I have spent the duration of my professional career working for or with innovative companies who are right on the cutting edge of their industries. I know what it takes to get things done. I know what it takes to be creative and to think outside the box. And I think it's time we see that at the county level, right? We need some innovation on a civic level, and we need to have someone who can bring some energy and some vivacity to kind of a stagnant position.
So, Aaron, I hear you that you're talking about. So I love that. It's never the case that we want our elected officials to have a 20-year term, right? Because it does feel like we want to have rotation in office, especially in a democratic republic like we have. Can you talk about some specific issues? So it's one thing to say, it feels stagnant, but what specifically would you be looking at to be talking about in your race and delivering for the voters of the county?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Leah. I mean, you look at, homelessness is a huge issue right now, right? And we're seeing the governor's office step in and put some policies in place because the county and the city just haven't really been able to get a handle on homelessness. Public safety is another factor that's high on people's minds right now. The county needs to feel safe. Our neighborhoods need to feel safe. Our police officers and our firefighters, they need to have the support that they need. They need to have the resources they need, and we need to work together as a community to support each other in that regard. We've also got issues with water. There's a lot going on between the county and the legislature to deal with that. And then you just look at the financial status of the county. I mean, again, I don't think a lot of people realize this, but the county has a $2 billion budget every single year, $2 billion for Salt Lake County. And yet we have roads that are not well maintained. We have county resources and facilities that are not well maintained. We have high turnover coming out of the mayor's office. There are a lot of things going on that make you wonder, where is that $2 billion going? And is there some mismanagement of county resources going on that really needs to be addressed?
All right, Aaron, so I've got like a minute. Tell us, is Taylor right about the numbers? So when he talks about Salt Lake County, I love that you laugh. Thank you. His face was
Hey now.
So is he right about this county? Is there a viable path for a Republican to win?
Yes, there is. And you know what? Let me tell you a story that amplifies what Taylor just said. I was talking to a young woman recently who said she wanted to run for office. And I asked her if she leaned more left or right. And she said, my whole life growing up, I always thought I was a Democrat. But as I've gotten older, I realized I actually align more with the values of the Republican Party in many ways. Things like being fiscally conservative and some of our environmental stewardship, different things like that. She's actually realizing that she aligns more with the platform of the Republican Party. I think there are a lot of politically homeless Republicans in Salt Lake County who have been so disenfranchised and disgusted with what's going on at a national level that they don't know where they sit. But here in Utah, with the ideals and values of the Utah Republican Party and smart, practical leadership, I think you're going to see a lot of those Republicans finally find a home again.
Aaron Ryder, thank you so much for joining KSL News Radio. Aaron is considering a run against Democratic Salt Lake County Mayor Jenny Wilson in 2024. Again, we will continue to attempt to bring on Mayor Wilson to the program as well. Stay right here, listeners. Coming up next, we're going to get into some backlash Donald Trump is facing about comments on immigrants. Stay right here.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
Listen at home on any smart speaker.
And in your car at 102.7 FM.
This is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 10 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. Mother Nature had a double whammy for us this morning, fog and smog, and it's going to stick around for a bit. KSL meteorologist Matt Johnson says the fog's coming from snow melting and ground moisture getting trapped in the valleys by cold air.
Moderate to unhealthy for sensitive groups type air. That's about the equivalent of smoking one cigarette a day.
The KSL Air Quality Network has been showing yellow and orange readings this morning. Some monitors have hit the unhealthy range around Weber State University, Bountiful, Rose Park, and the University of Utah. Matt says our next best chance to clear out the gunk is not until Saturday. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Pope Francis has approved a policy change that will allow Catholic priests to bless same-sex couples, though it stops short of approving marriages between people of the same sex. AP reports the document reiterates the church position that marriage is a lifelong sacrament between a man and a woman, but it says people seeking God's love and mercy shouldn't have to go through an exhaustive moral analysis to receive it. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day right now, 61 points. The NASDAQ is up 62. And our KSL weather, if we can see the forecast, we'll tell you more about the smog in the air. That's next. KSL News Time, 10:01.
Early mornings can be hard enough, just getting yourself going.
We try to make it a little easier with news and weather from comfortable, trusted anchors and reporters.
Join us on Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9
on KSL News Radio.
Let's get together for Christmas. Let's take our time and make new
From everyone at Shields, we hope you enjoy the gift of family and friends this holiday season. It's a special time to get together with those you love to make new memories. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays from all of us at Shields.
Gang together, let's get together this year.
Question: what will you find on all over-the-counter or OTC medicine packages to help you choose the right drug and use it safely? The answer: the drug facts label. This label lists the medicine's active ingredients and purpose, how much to take, and warnings you should know before using it. Remember, even OTC medicines you buy without a prescription can cause side effects you don't want. So follow the information listed on the drug facts label. For more information, visit fda.gov/drug facts label. A message from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
Jeff Kaplan.
I'm originally from New Jersey. It's a little different than Utah. Oh, okay. It's a lot different than Utah. You understand what I'm saying here? I first came here on a date. I had an employee who lived in Utah, and I said, that girl, I think I'm going to meet her, and it's tax deductible. I never left. I've never left. I've been here for going on 15 years now, and we've been married for 12. I've been around the block in the radio business. I've worked for a lot of major companies. There are none with the commitment to the community that I found at KSL. There are none with the camaraderie of the staff that I found at KSL. And there are none with the commitment of management and the company to the safety, the health, the welfare of their staff. And I just love this place.
Ride Home with Jeff Kaplan, weekdays 3 to 7 on KSL News Radio.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Jason Jones.
Well, we're still seeing some fog out there and some wet roads here and there, but so far, none of that is causing you any problems at all. The volume is fairly light as you travel north and southbound on I-15 between Payson and Ogden. There's no delays and no accidents out there. Your major feeders over to I-15 are also looking really good in and out of Tooele. No problems on 201, I-80. The belt route is looking good. And if you're headed up into the canyons at this point in time, you're probably going to be able to get up there and get out of the inversion, but you're going to be able to do so with no delays there either. Cypress checking account members enjoy discounted rates on auto and RV loans, free access to their credit scores and reports, and a suite of other products and perks. Learn more at cypresscu.com. Cypress Credit Union, your future is our future. I'm Jason Jones in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, we're looking at several days of bad air quality and AM fog, at least Saturday, before the weather changes enough to get rid of the inversion conditions. Right now, 27 degrees and fog in Salt Lake. I'm Dan Bamas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Mom and Dad used to argue about everything, especially about Dad's drinking. It drove me crazy. It got so bad, I couldn't do my homework. I couldn't concentrate. I absolutely refused to let any of my friends come to our house for any reason. I would have been humiliated if anyone found out how much my dad drank and how loud my mom screamed at him. My family went from totally crazy to quiet, calm, and even peaceful. The only thing that happened is my mom started going to Al-Anon family groups. Her relationship with my dad really changed. I asked Mom if she would take me to her Al-Anon meetings, or to Alateen. I wanted to see if I could have a better relationship with my dad. I'm sure glad I did. If someone's drinking troubling you, you might be surprised at what you can learn in an Al-Anon or Alateen family group from people just like you. Call 1-888-4-ALANON or go to alanon.org.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories on KSL News Radio.
And welcome back to, actually, Leah Murray and Taylor Morgan. We are filling in for Dave and Dujanovic this morning. And Taylor, we spent the first hour chatting all things local, right? So who is running for Senate, who's running for Salt Lake County Mayor, what's going on with this air out here. I wanted to pivot in our second hour a little bit to some national stories because I think they're interesting as well. And while the 2024 election is about Mitt Romney's seat and it's about the Salt Lake County mayor, it is also about the presidential election, which will be top of the ballot.
And we know that presidential election cycles, Leah, have a big impact when it comes to voter turnout. Particularly, we talked a little bit about Salt Lake County in the last segment, and we have a Republican challenger potentially to challenge current Democratic Mayor Jenny Wilson, who, by the way, Leah, just during that last break, Jenny Wilson sent out an email making it official. She is running for re-election in 2024. So we do have a competitive race coming, but I'm leading up to the story here, Leah, and that is that having that Republican, a potentially contested Republican primary, and then the presidential election in 2024 is going to have a big impact in boosting voter turnout throughout the country, particularly in Salt Lake County, I would say. We saw that in 2020. That is something very typical for Salt Lake County and for the entire
Does
state.
that change the numbers you just said, right? Because party ID numbers and how I registered is something different and separate from party, like behavior. Does that make sense, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if it is top of the ballot and it's Nikki Haley, right, what does that do in Salt Lake County?
Great question, Leah. It's a really good question. In the past, when Donald Trump was the candidate, we saw a huge uptick among new and inactive Republican voters that came out of the woodwork to vote for Donald Trump. If he is the nominee again in 2024, which it appears to be that way, we're going to get into this now, I see turnout going way up. I see that happening primarily for Donald Trump, but really for any Republican candidate. But let's talk a little bit about former President Donald Trump. And shocker, he stepped into it, got in a little bit of trouble with some new comments he made this week, and it's something we want to get into now on this segment.
Yeah, and so we're going to bring in Ann Flaherty, ABC News correspondent from Washington. Welcome to the show, Ann.
Hey, happy to be here.
All right, so you just tell us and our listeners, what is the story? What did Donald Trump say this week? What is going on?
Yeah, I mean, he's still, as it was just mentioned, he is still far and away the front runner of this GOP primary that isn't even yet underway. But over the weekend, he's in New Hampshire talking to a crowd. He's talking about border control, needing to shut down the border. A lot of Americans agree with this. But then he took it a step further, and he talked about immigrants, quote, poisoning the blood of our country. That's what they've done. So that language, of course, echoing white supremacists, and even some language that was used by Adolf Hitler in his manifesto Mein Kampf, where Hitler had criticized mixing races, calling it, quote, blood poisoning. Now, Trump has been criticized for this before, and he's used it a second time. So his critics coming after him saying, you need to stop with this inflammatory rhetoric. He also praised other dictators. He talked about the Prime Minister of Hungary, who has also warned about mixing, quote, mixing races. He said that this Prime Minister is the future of Western civilization. So really inflammatory rhetoric, really anti-democratic rhetoric coming from the GOP frontrunner over the weekend.
And do you have an idea, right, because he puts himself on a list with Hungary's Viktor Orban, China's Xi Jinping, North Korea's Kim Jong-un. He also quotes Putin. Like, is this, I don't know, because I like how you said, he said the blood poisoning and things like that before, but putting himself on a list with all the authoritarian leaders that we could name in the world, is this a new move, or does that feel like it's something new from the former president?
It's an extension of what he was doing in office. When he was getting power and trying to run the White House, we saw that he gravitated towards these authoritarian figures. And reporters that were close to him and in the White House, they said, he seemed to be in awe of some of these leaders. I mean, he really valued talking to them, and he felt like he identified with Russian President Putin. Putin, of course, coming out and saying, well, we all know that those investigations into the president, those are just politically motivated. And Trump says, yeah, I think they're politically motivated too. So really aligning himself with them over time. But really what we saw in this speech, it was almost like the greatest hits all mashed together. He really laid it out there to say, I'm going to align with these far-right dictators around the globe.
Yeah. And by no means do I want to justify or rationalize away what Donald Trump said here. But in all honesty, when I heard about these latest comments, I kind of rolled my eyes. And my immediate reaction was, well, this is Donald Trump just being Donald Trump. It's just kind of more of the same. And perhaps my reaction is also not great, that I've just become accustomed to this.
Desensitized.
Desensitized. That's a great word, Leah. I guess the question is, Anne, from your perspective, why is this kind of rhetoric that is inexcusable, right? Why is this not having more of an impact politically when it comes to voters? I mean, Donald Trump is not just leading the field of Republican candidates for 2024, but he is far and away the front runner. He is leading by as many as 40 or 50 percentage points in many red states. Why is there such a disconnect, do we think?
I mean, I think you're absolutely right. One, the very big reason is that people are desensitized. That is hands down the first reason. I think, too, when people are close to the government, you're covering it every day, you can see the ways that, when the Trump people came in initially, they were sort of stunned. It was almost like they didn't know that they were going to win. They didn't have a lot of supporters. A lot of Republicans said, look, I'm going to sit this administration out. This isn't my deal. So they really lost a lot of that expertise of, how do you fill those thousands of appointments within government? The way the government works is you have a civil service servants, but they are run and managed by political appointees. And there weren't enough people really to steer the ship when President Trump first got in. Well, what they are doing now is they are making sure that when they walk in that door, that they hit the ground running. And we have seen several reports, Washington Post, New York Times, others, who are close to the president, who say that he is really planning on using the Justice Department, for example, to go after his critics this time. I think they're going to be smarter. I think they're going to be bolder on how do you actually change the government from the inside in. And they have made clear that they're going to do it, in many ways that people will cheer on, like the border. The border is a broken system. Most Americans agree on that. But they will also use it to their own benefit and to go after their critics. So, I think a lot of people have fallen asleep on this. I think anyone who studies this is really deeply alarmed, and they warn that this is how countries the democracy can slip away.
And it's certainly not helpful that we have in President Biden is not polling well at all. Very high disapproval rating, not performing well in the polls. We'll talk about that next segment, but perhaps it's easier for some of us to stomach some of these statements when we have serious concerns about the economy and about the current administration. That's just my perspective, perhaps. But Anne, thank you so much for joining us. Anne Flaherty, ABC News correspondent from Washington. Really appreciate you bringing your insight to KSL News Radio this morning.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
All right, Taylor, so let's talk about that. When we get back after the break, listeners, we'll get into what is it about Biden that's a problem.
Dave and Dujanovic. We're expanding Dave and Dujanovic on KSL.
Now they'll be live on Fridays.
Starting in January, here Dave and Debbie at 9 and the movie show at 11.
Finally, Friday on KSL News Radio.
One thing that is so good is the food that you get at Christmas.
Oh, my favorite is to make baklava.
A Christmas memory from KSL News Radio.
Not only do I just love making my grandmother's baklava, it's just so wonderful to share.
Christmas morning, I have a bowl of Golden Grahams, and I'm just happy.
I need to come to your house. Your life is much simpler than mine.
Merry Christmas from Maria Ton and the KSL Greenhouse at KSL News Radio.
Kidney cars, donate your car today. Tax write-off, hip, 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 hooray. Kidney cars, give your car away. Tax write-off, and you will save today.
The staff of the National Kidney Foundation of Utah would like to wish you a merry holiday season and remind you that it is better to give than receive, but not better than giving and receiving. For example, if you give your car to the Kidney Foundation, you may get a tax deduction. Call 1-800-TOW-CARS with a K. That's 1-800-TOW-KARS. To donate your used car to the Kidney Foundation, call 1-800-TOW-CARS with a K. That's 1-800-TOW-KARS.
Kidney cars, donate your car today. Tax write-off, hip, 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 hooray!
Call 1-800-TOW-CARS with a K.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
The holiday season is right around the corner, so give the gift that's hard to wrap, but easy to give. Give them a Stihl. With powerful trimmers, blowers, and chainsaws to place under the tree, the Stihl Holiday Gift Guide has something for everyone. Save $30 on the BG56 CE handheld blower. Visit your local Stihl dealer or go to stihlusa.com/gift guide. Real Stihl. Find yours. Offer valid for a limited time only at participating dealers while supplies last.
My little brother's friends have been camped out at our place for 2 days straight. 3. It's because of the Xfinity 10G network. Internet that can handle a house full of screens at once, with basically no interruptions. And it's only getting faster. When I was their age, internet like this was a pipe dream.
You sound like my grandpa.
Please go home.
The next generation 10G network only from Xfinity. The future starts now. Now through March 21st, new customers can get 1.2 gigabit internet on the Xfinity 10G network for just $25 a month for 2 years with no annual contract and Wi-Fi equipment included when you add Xfinity Mobile with unlimited data at regular rates. Go to xfinity.com/10G, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today. Requires paperless plan and autopay with stored bank account. Restrictions apply. Taxes and fees extra. Xfinity Mobile requires Xfinity Internet. After promo, regular rates apply to internet service and Wi-Fi equipment. Actual speeds vary.
This joyful sound is the No More Chemo bell at Intermountain Health St. George Hospital, and it means that Sarah Parker beat cancer. It also means her doctor spotted it early enough to treat, and that her oncologist helped her fight it every step of the way. It means that her nurse helped her keep track of medicines, and that a case manager made the whole experience just a little bit easier. Every time we hear that bell, it reminds us that all things are possible when we work together. It reminds us of the power of we. Intermountain Health.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, welcome to Inversion City. The thick air is going to be with us for a while. Second, Southwest Airlines will have to pay the biggest fine ever for canceled flights and service delays. And third, Pope Francis has approved a policy change that allows priests to bless same-sex couples, but it's not changing its policy on marriages. Right now, 28 degrees and foggy in Salt Lake. And back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Welcome back to Dave and Dujanovic. For today only, it is Morgan and Murray. You're with Taylor Morgan and Leah Murray filling in today for Dave and Debbie here on KSL News Radio. Leah, last segment, we talked about some of the latest comments, inflammatory remarks regarding immigrants by former President Donald Trump.
And being on a list with dictators.
Correct, and celebrating dictators, some nice people, as he called them.
Nice
Look,
people.
I said this last segment, and I'm not apologizing for, nor am I excusing any of these remarks coming from former President Trump. I think, however, that the shock and outrage and maybe surprise that some are manufacturing in response to these comments it's a little bit, I don't know, Leah, I'm a little bit tired of the moral outrage in response to the dumb things that Trump says. On the other hand, I'm not going to excuse or justify them. They're wrong. What he's saying is truly inexcusable. But at some point, Leah, don't we have to move on beyond just the shame and the blame and the moral outrage in politics?
Yeah, well, I think the issue is for Democrats is they've been running against Donald Trump since 2016.
Well,
rather than putting out here's a policy list, here's us solving problems, here's us building compromise where it's appropriate. I think a little bit for Democratic candidates, anyone who ever voted for Trump is somehow now not worthy of their attention, and I think it is absolutely the wrong move.
It is. We have the latest polling numbers are pretty clear here. Voters throughout the country, voters in both major parties and even independent voters clearly are saying that they believe that President Biden's policies hurt them. Leah, hurt them. Those are the words that voters are using to describe how they feel about President Biden's policies.
Right. So, like, reading out of Wall Street Journal article today, Taylor and I were looking at this data just to give listeners that data, like the numbers.
Yeah.
53% of voters overall saying Biden's policies hurt them, but it's scary. Among Democrats and independents, 45% saying his policies hurt them.
Yeah.
So the team, not necessarily maybe independents, but the team that should be with him, Democrats.
Even Democrats are frustrated by
saying
President Biden.
Right. So here's the deal. You know, if the president is awful, and I love the quote in this article, and I think you pinged off it too, Taylor, is I think Trump did a pretty good job if he shut his mouth, right? So a little bit, voters might be compartmentalizing. Whatever he says is just crazy talk. The policies he does is what I want. And they're not as worried with him aligning himself with dictators. Or they're not as worried with him sounding like Adolf Hitler when he talks, right? Because they figure that's just the performance, and what we're looking for is the outcome, and the outcomes are better for me.
Yeah, well, look, as someone who very much feels this way, Leah, that I, personally, politically, I would prefer former President Donald Trump's policies. My economic situation, for my small business, all of these things were much better under President Donald Trump than they have been under President Biden. However, I was one of many Republicans statewide and nationally that, shocking, Leah, this is going to come back to haunt me as always, but I voted for President Biden in 2020 because I was tired of the things that President Trump was saying. I thought his rhetoric and his irresponsible statements were sowing division, discord, and unrest in our country. And even though I liked his policies for myself, personally, selfishly, I was willing to perhaps risk some of my own personal economic benefit to have a higher stature of character and leadership in the White House. But fast forward, Leah, to December 2023, give me back President Donald Trump and some of the dumb things he says. If we can get his policies back, I will vote for him in 2024 instead of President Biden, because I personally have been so negatively impacted by President Biden's policies, as have so many other Americans.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. One of the things, the data in here is some people, and I would count myself among them, to a certain extent, whether it was Biden, right? So a number of Americans just kind of saying it didn't really affect me, right? So for me, whoever the president is doesn't matter, like a little bit for me.
Yeah.
So I'm voting often for character. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
because
it does,
basically I'm not a small business owner. I'm not someone who's the policy is going to affect. So my question for you is this, Taylor. Doesn't Nikki Haley give you the same policy set? And so then talk to me a little bit about, couldn't you in the party nominate someone? Now, the last segment we did Trump, and he was in New Hampshire, and we know that Sununu, who's the governor of New Hampshire, just endorsed Nikki Haley. We fully expect her to do well in New Hampshire.
Yes.
Why isn't the option, you hear what I'm asking, like it's not just Biden versus Trump. It could be in the first round is going to be these primaries. Why wouldn't you be saying, look, what I want is good policies and good character, and Nikki Haley is someone who gives it to me? And I'm just picking on Nikki Haley? Like it could be any of the other people.
No, I think that's exactly right, Leah. And it is Nikki Haley. And Nikki Haley is my first choice by far. I really like Nikki Haley. We have seen her really perform well, and her support in the polls is, in fact, growing. We have some new polling that shows that in a head-to-head, Nikki Haley would beat President Biden 49 to 45%. Donald Trump is slightly above that. I really like Nikki Haley. I'm just getting a step ahead of myself and perhaps speculating that Donald Trump will be the eventual 2024 Republican nominee. Maybe Nikki Haley is his vice president on the ticket. I don't know. I would love it to be Nikki Haley. I don't see it going that way in the end, though.
Okay. So then if it's not just about Donald Trump, do you think a little bit it's because it's been 4 years of policies that hurt you, so you forgot, right? Because what Nikki Haley talks about with Donald Trump is chaos follows him, right? So her kind of argument she's making is whether it's politically, like a witch hunt the way that President Trump says it is, or whether he deserves it, it's kind of irrelevant. The point is chaos follows him. And I'm wondering a little bit for voters it's been 4 years, so maybe we forgot how exhausting that was? Maybe you forgot how exhausting that was.
It was entertaining, also, Leah, and I problematically in a lot of ways. But look, I think that many Americans, when it comes to our government, we are so tired of the same old, same old. We are so tired of the establishment, of the professional full-time politicians and consultants and lobbyists that essentially run our government, that what Donald Trump was in 2016 and what he could be is chaos, we are upending the status quo. We are perhaps forcing change, even if it is maybe perhaps in a little bit of a risky way. We're forcing change upon the establishment. And, not that I speak for the majority, but I do believe that many voters are so desperate for change when it comes to our federal government that they see former President Trump as an agent of that change. And even though he comes with a lot of baggage and a lot of dumb things being said, he mixes things up, Leah, and people like things to be mixed up. And, the pot will be stirred.
Yeah. Which it was. Anyway, but let's talk a little bit about President Biden being frustrated. So what I think is kind of interesting is, right, what we have in an article over in the Washington Post is, a congressperson in Michigan reporting she doesn't really want to run with Biden at the top of the ticket.
Yeah.
Right, because the worry is even though Democrats are doing really well in Michigan, they've got a trifecta there where they've got all the branches of government, that Biden doesn't help their election prospects, right?
No, it definitely doesn't. Weighs them down.
Yeah, so we could say the same thing over on the Democratic side, right? If Biden is the problem, but then it's not as clear to me, there really doesn't seem to be a primary challenge. Does that make sense? There is not a Democratic Nikki Haley equivalent.
No, there's not. We saw Robert F. Kennedy Jr. tried to give it a go on the Democratic side of things.
He is not equivalent to Nikki Haley.
No. Of course he's not, but he couldn't find traction in the Democratic Party, so now he's running as an independent, third-party, unaffiliated candidate. Some polls have him in the range of 18 to 21%. Not really going to be consequential there. But, Leah, it's an important point you bring up here. I think that there is a sense of frustration among all voters that can we not do better than the same old guys from representing the same old positions in the two parties? Can we not find someone better? I think Nikki Haley is great. She is potentially a new leader, right? Mitt Romney called upon the next generation of leaders to step up. I think she does reflect that, Leah, but I don't know that enough voters in the party are going to get behind her for her to be the nominee.
All right, so stay with us, listeners. In the next little bit, this segment, we are going to have on Congresswoman Celeste Malloy, who is new. Taylor's looking for new leadership.
Yes.
She is new. And we'll have a conversation with her about her first couple of weeks in Congress and what all they did before they went home for the break. Stay with us.
It's 10:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bonas. KSL's top story this hour. Health experts warning people the pollution in our air on the Wasatch Front right now can damage your lungs. The Utah Division of Air Quality Director Bryce Bird tells KSL News Radio reducing what we put into the air is very important.
Turning the thermostat down can help a little bit. Our paints and solvents we use are also a component of the air pollution mix that collects in the valleys. And heavy industry is also encouraged to optimize their production.
Bird also recommends running your errands all in one day and not running your vehicles just to let them warm up. Southwest Airlines owes the biggest fine ever for an airline because it stranded 2 million people nationwide last winter. The Department of Transportation says Southwest owes $140 million plus $75 travel vouchers for passengers who were significantly delayed. Southwest calls that a pleasing settlement because it says it will lead the airline industry to better compensation for marooned customers. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin is in Israel to get an update on the war against Hamas in Gaza. A U.S. source tells ABC News Austin is also there to encourage the Israelis to start scaling down their military campaign. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says the war will not end until Hamas is wiped out.
Detecting and engaging Hamas leadership and the chain of command span over the phases of this war and will continue until we fully achieve our goals.
Gaza's health ministry reports 19,000 people have died there since Hamas attacked Israel in October. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day right now, 55 points. The NASDAQ is up 77 right now. And our KSL weather, we're just not going to get rid of this inversion anytime soon. That's next. KSL News Time, 10:32.
Start your days with knowledgeable, friendly voices telling you about the latest news and weather out there.
Hi, this is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
In the business of waking you up each morning from 5 to 9.
On KSL News Radio.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. What about those round trips that you plan in advance, which are perfect on your way there and perfect on your way back? Or those meetings with friends for which you make a group chat 3 months before so that nobody or anything is missing? Or your daughter's first birthday party. You planned it with such dedication that instead of the first, it felt like our quinces. The same way you plan each detail for those moments. Start planning to protect you and your loved ones from a natural disaster. Sign up for local weather and emergency alerts. Prepare an emergency kit and make a family communications plan. Protecting your family is the best plan you can make. Get started at ready.gov/plan.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Derek Overstreet, founder of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial planning firm. Listen, we're fiduciaries. We have advisors standing by right now to take your call. That's 888-999-6370. 888-999-6370. The reason you're going to want to call is we're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. Now, imagine how that would be if you could actually retire 3 to 5 years sooner than your plan was. The way we do this is by putting together a step-by-step plan, taking into consideration any rental properties that you have, any pension income that you have, your Social Security. Listen, we put that all together for you in writing. It will allow us to build your income based on inflation. You know, inflation has been rapidly rising. You and I both need a plan that whatever we start out our income at, in 5 or 10 years, we're going to need 40% more income. So if you're one of those people listening and you'd like a plan in writing, give us a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370, or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Jason Jones.
We continue to run accident-free and delay-free along the Wasatch Front. No problems north and southbound on I-15 from Ogden all the way down to Payson. We are still seeing some patches of fog out there, however, so make sure if you enter one of those patches of fog that you reduce your speed because you're going to have reduced visibility, a little bit of wet roads in those foggy patches as well. But otherwise, I-15 and 215, 201, I-80, they're all moving smoothly at this point. With no trouble along the Wasatch Front. I'm Jason Jones in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, we're still looking at several days of bad air quality and AM fog. Could be Saturday before the weather changes enough to get rid of the inversion conditions. And right now, 28 degrees with fog in downtown Salt Lake. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic.
And welcome back to Dave and Dujanovic. Filling in for them are Morgan and Murray. I'm Leah Murray alongside.
Just really rolls off the
It
tongue.
does.
It just sounds nice. Yeah. Hopefully Dave and Debbie aren't going to get upset with us about this, but I like that. I like that brand update. It's really nice, at least temporarily, right?
I know. And I feel like M is such a pretty letter.
M squared.
Like it could be totally in our logo. It'd be fabulous.
There you
All
go.
right. So I keep saying the break. I just want everyone to remember I'm a college professor. So for me, it's like we just went into break. And so I say things like Congress just went into break. Really what they did was they went to recess, right? So it's this, well, maybe that's also a break. That's a word we use.
Recess perhaps is more school-centric even than break, Leah.
Right.
Yeah.
So Congress just took a break, and they will come back on January 8th, and they will have a lot of work to do. And to help us kind of like talk about what's been happening the last little bit and what's going to happen right after the holiday is Congresswoman Celeste Malloy, Utah's own recent Congressional District 2 Congresswoman. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. How are you all?
We are doing well.
How are you, Congresswoman? You've had two, almost 3 weeks officially in Congress now since you were sworn in. How has it been? I follow you on social media and in the news. You've been prolific. There's been a lot happening. What has it been like?
Yeah, it's been busy. And I think most people are probably happy to know that. You select someone to go to Congress, you want them to work. And we've been working in almost 3 weeks. I've taken, I think close to 20 votes and done a lot of traveling. And we're in recess, but that doesn't mean we're not working. So I'm in southern Utah today. I'm traveling around with my chief, introducing him to local elected officials so that they know how to get a hold of me and how to get things done. So we're still working. We're just not working in Washington.
So, Congresswoman Malloy, I really appreciate what you just said, because that's right, you are working. So I'm saying you are on break, but my goodness, I think for Congress members, they're never on break. So I appreciate the correction. That was totally fair, and I apologize for it in any way.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
No need to apologize. People just don't know. There's no reason for anyone to know what Congress's schedule looks like unless you're involved in it. So I'm just trying to make sure people know.
Yeah, so tell us, you said you took 20 votes. Is there one vote? I don't want to say like it's your favorite, right? Or there's something you'd really like to talk about. What was the, I'll just say favorite. What was your favorite vote that you did over the last few weeks?
Well, my first one would have to be my favorite, partly because it was my first vote, but also it was the easiest vote. The first thing I voted on was a resolution affirming Israel's right to exist, and that just felt like a good, lofty kind of vote to take for my very first one. Not all of them are quite that important or easy. I've taken a couple of really controversial votes. The first week I voted to expel George Santos from Congress, and I know a lot of people struggled with that one. And then the last vote I took before I left town was to pass the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, which by itself isn't that controversial, but it included an extension of FISA, and that was controversial. So we're just right into the fire.
Tell us about that. Why was that controversial, and how did you ultimately make your decision on how to vote on the NDAA bill?
Yeah, I'm happy to explain that. I was leaning towards voting no, not because of the NDAA. There were a lot of good conservative wins in the NDAA and a raise for our military personnel, which is important. They have not kept up with inflation. But the FISA reforms were a big sticking point for me. This is the government's, the intelligence community's ability to surveil supposed to be foreigners outside of the U.S., but in that work, they sometimes catch information about Americans, and it's not entirely clear what they can and can't do with that, so we need to reform FISA to make it clear that the intelligence community can't spy on Americans when they're supposed to be spying on foreigners on foreign soil. And that is still a top priority for me. The reason I decided to vote yes is that there's a 4-month extension of FISA in there. And we had 2 Republican committees with competing FISA reform bills. So both bills were going to reform FISA, but they weren't the same. And as we got closer to the vote, it became clear to everybody in the conference that we have the votes to reform FISA, but we needed to get to one bill. So that everyone can vote on how to reform FISA. So we got an agreement
FISA,
in writing.
Sorry to jump in, Congresswoman, but FISA, just so our listeners know, you're referring to the Foreign Intelligence Security Act, I believe, right? As you pointed out, that has an impact on how Americans are surveyed overseas by our own intelligence.
Yeah, and it's not supposed to be Americans. It's only supposed to be foreigners, but sometimes Americans who are communicating with those foreigners, and we end up collecting data on Americans sort of as a byproduct. So the leaders of the Senate, Senators Schumer and McConnell, put in writing in a letter that they would have a FISA reform bill on the floor before April when this new authorization expires. And Speaker Johnson got an agreement out of the administration not to certify FISA, which is all inside baseball. But what it means is it really is a 4-month extension.
Right.
There's still a cliff. The pressure's still on to reform it.
Yeah, but I hear you. So basically you said we're going to say yes so we get all the good things we like in the bill, and we're saying yes to the thing we think is controversial, but we've got like an expiration date on it, right? So that you have, basically you gave yourself time to come back to work on that.
I love, can I just say, it is, I spend a little time working in Congress, and maybe that's not necessarily the best attribute that I should put out there. However, Congresswoman, you as a staffer in Congress for former Representative Chris Stewart, you were behind the scenes in all of this kind of policy detail and all the machinations and how all this plays out behind the scenes. You've been doing this for years. Has that helped you hit the ground running here as a new member of Congress?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know how anybody would ever come in a special election if they didn't have some background in how Capitol Hill works. It's not intuitive. The rules in Congress are strange. The culture in Congress is strange. And to come in fresh and try to learn it, if you come in on a regular cycle, they have a freshman orientation, and you spend like 2 weeks learning about the ethics rules and how the finances work and what the different staffers do. And it's great and it's necessary because it's a tough system to learn. But when you come in a special, I mean, I got sworn in and I voted 5 minutes later.
Yeah.
And you're just off to the races. And everybody's been really great about reaching out and offering help. And a lot of the members have had their chiefs of staff reach out to my chief of staff and offer to answer any questions he has. But there is no orientation and there's no time to ramp up. So having some experience working on the Hill has been absolutely essential.
I love it. It's like baptism by fire. Congresswoman.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit. We've got like a minute left. When you get back after your working holiday, right? So I totally hear you are working. When you get back after the holiday season, what are the issues right out of the gate that you all in Congress get to tackle?
Well, for one, FISA reform and also funding. So they did the CRs before I got there, and those expire, the continuing resolutions expire in January and February. So we've got to hit the ground running on funding bills as soon as we get back in.
Yeah. Well, Congresswoman Celeste Malloy, thank you so much for joining us here on KSL News Radio. Thank you for the work you're doing right now. I do want to put in a plug. I saw that you announced that you opened your district office locations. Can you just, in the next 10, 15 seconds, let our listeners and your constituents know where those offices are and how they can reach out to your office for any help they may need?
Yeah, so my district office is in St. George. I have an office in Bountiful, and I'm working on having part-time offices in Richfield and Delta. And the best way to get a hold of us right now is to go to the website.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Malloy.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Listeners, stay right here. Coming up next, we're going to have an important conversation about unintentional firearm injury deaths. Stay right here with us on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Treat yourself to the depth and analysis on Inside Sources.
Floyd Matheson goes beyond the headlines of the biggest stories.
Listen to Inside Sources from 1 to 3
on KSL News Radio.
Guys, does she need a little escape this year? Introducing Cozy Escape Pajamas from Pajamagram, America's PJ experts. These PJs are just the getaway she needs. So take that time off and plan a holiday staycation. Cozy Escape Pajamas make the perfect gift for your special someone who deserves a little rest and relaxation. Treat her to luxurious next-level cozy signature soft fleece. They're as light as a dream and will keep her oh so warm, like snuggling in her favorite blanket. She'll love to cuddle in Cozy Escape PJs on those extra chilly nights. With Pajamagram, you can even add gift packaging. Order now for guaranteed delivery by Christmas. She's missed out on a lot of things she loves this year, so this Christmas, give her the escape she deserves. These new PJs are selling fast, so order today. Go to pajamagram.com right now. That's pajamagram.com to order Cozy Escape Pajamas. Pajamagram.com.
Give the best gift a Jazz fan can get. Tickets to a Jazz game. Or treat yourself with our holiday ticket packs. Getting a pack not only gets you to a game. With every ticket purchase, you can get $15 in Jazz notes for in-arena concessions on merch at the team store. Plus, each ticket comes with a ticket to a Salt Lake City Stars game. Get your tickets now by calling or texting 801-355-DUNK. Or by visiting UtahJazz.com. Happy holidays from the Utah Jazz.
Merry Christmas, honey.
A Bernina embroidery machine? It's wonderful.
Bernina products are wonderful Christmas gifts that you'll love and use. Take advantage of these holiday specials at Dave's Bernina in St. George and Provo.
Save thousands of dollars on world-famous Bernina sewing machines, such as the B700E for $2,999, the B500E $1,999, and get a free $2,000 embroidery module when you purchase the 770 Cave machine.
48 months, no interest on certain machines.
Purchase the L890 Serger and receive a free Bernina Studio cabinet, a $3,250 value. How about $2,400 worth of free gifts when you buy a Bernina B790 Pro model?
25% off all Bernina luggage, embroidery hoops, and presser feet.
Amazing bargains on previously owned and demo machines with warranties at Dave's Bernina, 691 East St. George Boulevard and 2017 North 550 West in Provo.
At Intermountain Primary Children's Hospital, we made a bold promise to build the nation's model health system for children. Join us in realizing our vision for the future of pediatric care. So together, we can expand primary children's impact and ensure every child has access to the right care at the right place at the right time. For a century, Primary Children's has kept the child first and always. Help us continue to do so for the next 100 years. To get involved, visit primarypromise.org.
Introducing Yes, heating, air conditioning, plumbing, and electric. We're bringing all of Utah's favorite HVAC, plumbing, and electrical brands under one roof. Maximize your energy savings with a new energy-efficient heating and cooling system from Yes, and you could save up to $4,500 through possible tax credits and other discounts. Purchase a new system today, and Yes will buy back your old inefficient HVAC system. Visit theyesmancan.com to schedule your appointment. Call now or visit theyesmancan.com for details, terms, and conditions.
Two friends taking pictures of the rising full moon on a summer night.
Two teenage kids doing what teenage kids do.
When a stranger with a gun and a death wish changed everything.
It was violent, it was senseless, and I will never understand it, I will never accept it.
I'm Amy Donaldson, and unfortunately, we're all too familiar with stories about how violence shatters lives. But what we rarely see is how they are rebuilt. In a new podcast, The Letter, we relive tragedy, but only so we can hear the rest of the story. The struggle to reclaim lives, the realities of grief, and the possibilities of forgiveness.
I believe in miracles. Sometimes I thought, there are no miracles. Yeah, there are, and this is a big one.
Follow The Letter at theletterpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, experts say there are lots of things we can do during this inversion to keep our air quality from getting worse. Second, NASA scientists say they haven't been able to identify the stuff brought back from an asteroid by a space probe. And third, Israel says it will keep fighting in Gaza until it's destroyed Hamas, while the United States is urging Israeli forces to do more to protect civilians. Right now, fog and 28 degrees in Salt Lake City. And back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic.
And welcome back to Dave and Dujanovic, who are taking the day. So today you have Morgan and Murray. My friend Taylor and I are filling in. And thank you so much for joining us and listening to us today.
Yes, thank you.
So Taylor, I want to just tell you that generally I support the Second Amendment. So,
oh, really?
Yes. So I am someone who thinks it's kind of important for people who are citizens. How do I say? I'd rather have it not be that the only people armed are the government, right? So I have this kind of political position on the Second Amendment. But I am not someone who has a gun in my home or someone who goes to a shooting range. So I'm probably just some weird, like a little agnostic as to this whole conversation.
You are a professor of political science, and I believe you specialize in, the Constitution and, the historical evolution of American institutions. So I think it makes sense that you would be a supporter of the Second Amendment, Leah.
Right, but I want to be thoughtful about, we clearly have issues with gun violence in this country, right?
We do.
So what I wanted to bring to the table today with you is the CDC just released a report on unintentional firearm injury deaths. So while I think it's important that people are allowed to have guns in their home, I also think it's important that people know how best to make sure they're not unintentionally hurting people with them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So in this segment, we're going to bring in Rebecca Wilson, the first author of the CDC report that I just referenced on unintentional firearm injury deaths, to talk about, what they found. Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. So first of all, can you give us, if you had like a top line takeaway, what is the biggest thing we learned from what you were studying in this report?
Yeah, so I looked at unintentional firearm injury deaths among children ages 0 to 17 for data years 2003 to 2021, so a large period of time. And what I found is that firearms used in unintentional firearm injury deaths among children and adolescents were often stored both loaded and unlocked, so stored unsecured.
So the answer basically is probably better. And again, I started this whole thing by saying I'm not a gun owner, but it feels like better management of the firearm in the home would go a long way to preventing most of those accidental deaths.
Yeah, absolutely. So we know that these deaths are preventable, and just putting a firearm out of sight and out of reach is not considered safe storage. And it's not enough to prevent use by children and adolescents, and that's what we found. So we recommend securely storing firearms if there are any in the home, and just also ensuring that children and adolescents are supervised. We know that some children do have authorized parents and caregivers to use a firearm. So if there's a firearm in the home and where there is authorized use of a firearm, we do recommend that those children and adolescents are supervised. And we also know that the holidays are here, right? So most children are out of school. And so this presents more opportunities. Yeah.
Now, when you say, Rebecca, store securely, can you give us some specifics about secure? What exactly does that mean? Because I know there's different approaches that people can take with storing their firearms, but give us some more details or elaborate on what you mean when you say store securely.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we do know that we have a lot of partner organizations that do provide some recommendations. And what those recommendations are is that if there is a firearm in the home, storing it locked, loaded, and separate from ammunition. And we provide links on our website of what some of those partner organizations are. This is based on the best available evidence to prevent these deaths.
Rebecca, can you talk to us about the demographics? Because I feel like when I read the report, right, there were certain groups who were more likely to get the unintentional, hurt unintentionally. Can you talk about the different subpopulations that you saw?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we looked at children ages 0 to 17, but what we found was that a third of those were among children ages 11 to 15. And disproportionately for that age group, those injuries were inflicted by another. And for the younger children, ages 0 to 5, they accounted for about 30% of unintentional firearm injury deaths that we found in this study. And their injuries were disproportionately self-inflicted. And it makes sense because when you think about child development, older youth tend to have unsupervised interactions with peers versus younger children. They tend to be curious and inquisitive and explore in their environments. And so they may find an unsecured firearm and inflict a self-inflicted injury.
We're speaking
in addition,
Oh, sorry, Rebecca. Go ahead,
yeah.
please.
Yeah, you were just asking about some of the demographics. In addition, the majority were boys. And I think this is consistent with most, if not all, literature on firearm use. Most of the victims were boys, as well as the shooters. Most of the shooters were boys. And then most of the victims were in 3 racial and ethnic groups: Black, Hispanic, and white.
Rebecca Wilson is currently joining us with the CDC to talk about this new report on unintentional firearm injury deaths. Rebecca, these numbers are startling, and it seems to be very clear, very conclusive that having a firearm in the home, that is not stored securely. And as you elaborated earlier, stored securely means locked up, stored, unloaded, separate from ammunition. That's what we're talking about when we say stored securely. But the numbers appear to be very clear in this report about the consequences of not storing your firearms securely. How do we use these kinds of reports, this kind of information, to translate into public policy? How do we get from here to there, in your opinion?
Yeah, so regarding public policy, so this study, we didn't look at public policy. I know there are some studies that have examined certain policies, such as the child access prevention laws. So that is one policy. We did not examine the relationship between unintentional firearm injury deaths of children and those state-specific gun laws or policies that are in effect. But I know that there are some studies that have done that, and there's one study in particular that looked at child access prevention laws and how effective they may be in preventing these deaths. And so they did find some evidence that they are helpful in preventing these deaths. But then other research has raised questions about awareness of these policies and the modest effects on secure firearm storage. So I will say overall, just the overall takeaway is that if you have a firearm in the home, as a parent, as a caregiver, as a firearm owner, securing your firearm is the best way to prevent these deaths. So we didn't examine policies, but that is what we continue to iterate, storing your firearm securely.
Rebecca Wilson, author of the CDC report on unintentional firearm injury deaths. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So I feel like it's so important. So I told you, we are not a gun-owning family.
Yeah.
My son is a Boy Scout and desperately wants to shoot some kind of weapon, Taylor, right?
Yeah.
So a little bit, I think.
Well, get him trained, get him some education.
Right, he's gotten his rifles shooting merit badge, so he's doing it through Boy Scouts, right? And the answer is, but the first phase of that is gun safety.
It is.
Right, and it's always gun safety. You don't just have like a weapon in the home that maybe looks like something that you could play on your PlayStation with. Right. So it's very important for caregivers and adults in these situations to make these young people make sure that our young children actually are interacting with guns in a safe way if they have the potential to interact with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Store your firearms securely.
All right. So stay with us. In our next hour, we'll have a conversation about Ruby Franke and maybe entering some kind of plea agreement after the break.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
Listen at home on any smart speaker.
And in your car at 102.7 FM.
This is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 11 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. Former YouTuber expected to agree to a plea deal today in a Southern Utah courtroom. KSL TV's Shelby Lofton reports.
They are going to enter into a plea agreement that Ruby Franke is incredibly sorry for what she did, and it said that she was going to take responsibility for her actions that led up to her arrest. It's been more than 100 days that she's been in jail now, so this is kind of a reset from what we've seen before. It looked previously like she was going to fight these charges.
The hearing is scheduled to start at 11. We'll bring you more throughout the day. A family of 5 out of their home this morning after a fire started in one of their basement bedrooms in Taylorsville. No one was hurt, and firefighters still working to determine the cause. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Pope Francis has approved blessings for same-sex couples, provided those rituals don't resemble marriage. We have more from ABC's Tom Rivers.
Seen as a big policy shift for Catholics, Francis has formally approved allowing priests to bless same-sex couples. A document explaining the radical change insists that people seeking God's love and mercy shouldn't be subject to, quote, an exhaustive moral analysis to receive it. Francis suggests such blessings could be offered under some circumstances if they don't confuse the rite with the sacrament of marriage. Tom Rivers, ABC News at the Foreign Desk.
Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day, but just 25 points right now. The NASDAQ, on the other hand, is up 87 points. And our KSL weather, boy, that fog and inversion is going to stick around. That's next. KSL News Time, 11:01.
What do you need to hear in the morning to feel ready for the day?
Important news that happened overnight, the traffic you'll hit on the roads.
You'll be ready for your day with us.
Join Utah's Morning News 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Jeff Kaplan here for my good friends at Advanced Window Products. Jake Weber and Nate Orchard are spreading the holiday cheer with their biggest sale of the year. If the wind whistles through your windows, if you want a fresh new look for your number one investment, your home, call Advanced Window Products and take advantage of this incredible end-of-year sale. Replace all of your windows and frames, and you get $2,500 off. But that's not all. You get a free premium glass upgrade. Insulate your home against the cold with double-pane windows and stylish frames, any style, any color, and they're built custom right here at their headquarters in Salt Lake City for 37 years. They build the windows, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. Plus, an additional $2,500 off and a free premium glass upgrade. You can save now, pay later, so take advantage. Call now, Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100, 801-850-9100, or visit advancedwindowsusa.com.
Some intimate parts need the gentle, easy trim of a Gillette trimmer, and some need the closeness and comfort of a Gillette Intimate razor, while others need a Gillette anti-chafe stick. Gillette Intimate, the best a man can get, down there. Buy now.
Try Syntec high-mileage full synthetic motor oil to help high-mileage engines run better for longer. Only at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
You've heard the buzz about IT jobs in cybersecurity and AI, right? Why not prepare for a career in these fields and take advantage of the high demand? You could enjoy a more rewarding and recession-resistant lifestyle. Train in just a few short months at My Computer Career. No experience necessary. Already in IT? Skill up for positions employers need to fill. Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. That's mycomputercareer.edu. Financial aid is available for qualified students, including the GI Bill.
Any Hour Services can help you make sure your furnace keeps you warm this winter. Whether you need a tune-up, a repair, or a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. And here's Len Thomas.
Good morning, Dan. As you make your way on the freeways this morning, it's all easy and calm for the most part over the point of the mountain and into the downtown ramps in Salt Lake Valley. If you're heading to Ogden or vice versa, or points north of there, it's looking very good. Little slowing in Clearfield on Antelope Drive or reaching I-15. And in West Valley, a little slowing at the 154, or we like to call it the Bangor Highway as you approach 31st. And it looks like a little slowing in Spanish Fork Canyon. That is Highway 6 coming off of I-15. Mortgage rates have fallen. Lower your payment. Find out more at loansbyrick.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 287106. That's loansbyrick.com. I'm Lynn Thomas in the KSL Traffic Center.
And KSL weather, we're looking at several days of bad air quality and AM fog. It'll be Saturday before the weather changes enough to get rid of the inversion conditions. Right now, 28 degrees with some fog still. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to KSL News Radio. This is the third hour of Morgan and Murray today, filling in for Dave and Dujanovic here on KSL News Radio. Leah, it's been a great show so far. This segment, we're going to kick off the hour by updating our listeners on the Ruby Franke case. Popular YouTuber, influencer Ruby Franke has entered, this is news, has entered a plea agreement on child abuse charges. That is according to her attorney. We want to bring onto the program now KSL News Radio legal analyst and expert, also a fellow KSL at Night host, Greg Skordas. Greg, welcome to the show. And tell our listeners, please, what is the latest with the Ruby Franke case and this new plea agreement?
So what's going on is this. Both she and her co-defendant, Jody Hildebrandt, had been charged for several months now with 6 counts of what we call aggravated sexual abuse of a child. Those are second-degree felonies. They were both giving every indication that they were contesting the charges, that they were going to trial. But then, as what often happens, I think that they sort of decided to go their own path. And Ruby Franke, as you indicated, through her attorneys, and they issued a statement last Friday that she was going to be entering a plea today to lesser charges of child abuse. We don't know exactly the nature of those charges or the degree of the charges because they're literally happening as we speak or just barely happened. But we know them to be less than what her co-defendant, Jody Hildebrandt, is still facing. We also know that that she's going to be called to testify against Hildebrandt. She's going to be a witness against her co-defendant, and that often relates to and results in, I should say, fairly reduced charges to the person who's helping the state get the other person. In this case, I'm making a long story or a short story long. They've clearly decided, the state has clearly decided that Hildebrandt is the more culpable, the more guilty, the person who should be held more responsible than Ruby Franke, and that's why this deal was cut.
All right, so Greg, I'm reading in the Salt Lake Tribune coverage of the hearing, which I think is actually happening right now. So I think we'll know exactly what goes on a little bit later. But in the story in the Trib, it says that Franke's attorneys argue that Hildebrandt systematically isolated her from her family, which resulted in Franke being subjected to a distorted sense of morality. So it's not just that, right, maybe that the state would have thought Hildebrandt's the bigger fish, right, and we can get Hildebrandt through Franke. It also sounds like maybe Franke's attorneys, right, kind of realized, oh, no, this is an oppressed person. Am I reading that accurately? So that they are saying to her, really what you should do is not be connected with Hildebrandt, and maybe even that just intervention leads to Franke thinking differently, right? If you remove her from the influence, maybe she starts to think more reasonably.
That's exactly right. And what she's saying is, hey, I made some mistakes. I did some bad things. She's accepting responsibility for that as we speak. But she's saying, really, I was influenced. I was, like you said, systematically isolated from my family, subjected to distorted sense of morality shaped by Hildebrandt's influence. I mean, this letter that her lawyers wrote last Friday really lays out a very strong case against Hildebrandt as an influencer of Ruby Franke. Now, you can only take that so far because I can't imagine most parents ever being influenced enough by any outside source to do what Ruby Franke is accused of doing here. And if you recall, there was severe malnourishment to a couple of the children. I mean, it was really some very, very bad parenting that resulted in these. It's the most serious form of child abuse you can get. But she's now saying, look, I'm going to take my lumps, but really I was influenced a great deal and really subject to a lot of misinformation by this Jody Hildebrandt, who happens to be a licensed clinical mental health counselor.
Greg, we do have breaking news. As we started off noting in this segment, Ruby Franke has indeed pled guilty to 4 second-degree felony charges of aggravated child abuse in this legal hearing happening right now. This is breaking news. Greg, can you give us a sense, just react to that? KSL News Radio legal analyst Greg Skordas with us here. Can you react to that update, Greg?
Yeah, so as an attorney, having practiced for 41 years, if you're charged with 6 second-degree felonies and you plead to 4, on its face, that doesn't seem like much of a break because under the law, a judge can only run 3 consecutive to one another. So 3 is as bad as 300, if you know what I'm trying to say here. Yeah. But there must be a second part of this plea bargain, and that's going to come at the time of sentencing. So pleading to 4 second-degree felonies when you're charged with 6 is good, but it's not a great resolution. I would assume there is a second part of this plea bargain, which will include some recommendations or some concessions from the state at the time of Ruby Franke's sentencing, perhaps maybe run all the counts concurrently, that is at the same time, or maybe even a recommendation of probation, which would include jail or maybe a year or two of jail or something like that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Greg, to provide a little bit of background on what kind of consequences, again, if she pleads guilty to and is found guilty of 4 counts of aggravated child abuse. They were both Ruby Franke and Hildebrandt were charged with 6 counts. We just learned that Ruby Franke has pled guilty to 4 of those counts of second-degree felony aggravated child abuse. Can you tell our listeners, what does that mean? What aggravated child abuse, second-degree felony, what is that, and what kind of consequences does it carry in terms of sentencing?
So each of those counts carries a prison term, a potential prison term of up to 15 years. Aggravated child abuse simply means that the conduct was intentional. It wasn't an accidental, like sometimes a parent might spank a child and cause an injury or do something else that maybe recklessly or accidentally causes injury. So it's an intentional act, and it's a serious child abuse. It's not just a spanking or a bruise or something like that. It's a life-threatening injury that was intentionally caused. That's the way you get a child abuse up to the most serious form of child abuse, which is aggravated child abuse, and that is a second-degree felony punishable by up to 15 years in prison for each count, and in this case, there are 4 counts.
Greg, can you talk to us about the other person in this case, Hildebrandt? So this is all Franke moving forward. There's a plea bargain. When would you expect to hear what's going to happen with Hildebrandt?
I would say that could be fairly soon, Leah, because now that Ruby's pled, the state's case just got a whole lot stronger, especially if Franke's going to testify against Hildebrandt. I would imagine Hildebrandt's attorneys are probably looking at what their options are now, and they may still say, no, we're going to trial, we're going to fight this case, we want our day in court, but they're going to have another witness testifying against them instead of sitting next to them as a co-defendant at trial, and that will make the state's case much stronger. So I would assume the Hildebrandt team is gearing up either to see what kind of plea bargain they can make or recognizing that the state's case against their client probably just got stronger.
KSL News Radio legal analyst Greg Skordas, as always, thank you so much for joining us here, for keeping our listeners updated on all of these legal developments. I imagine we will have you back very soon for the next update, Greg. Thank you.
You bet.
Listeners, stay right here with us on Morgan and Murray, filling in today for Dave and Debbie on KSL News Radio. Coming up in our next segment, we're going to talk about some potential gift ideas for those in your life who might be struggling with dementia and also for their caregivers. It's going to be a great segment. Stay right here with us on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic.
2 new reasons to drop in on KSL on Friday mornings.
Starting in January, you'll hear Dave and Debbie Fridays at 9.
And hear the movie show at lunch from 11 to 1.
On KSL News Radio.
Christmas memories for me always centered around BYU football bowl games. Think about the crazy finishes. Those were always amazing.
A Christmas memory from KSL News Radio.
For me, Mitch, I'll never forget in the 90s getting a Nintendo 64 with Mario Kart. I played that so dang much.
The new video game console, and then you're listening to Cougar football. It was always an amazing time growing up.
Merry Christmas from Mitch, Matt, and Cougar Nation, and everyone at KSL News Radio.
Did you know 96% of Americans lose an average of $111,000 in Social Security income? And it's because they claim their benefits at the wrong time. Don't lose $111,000 in Social Security income that's rightfully yours. Learn how you could wring every nickel out of your benefits on Retirement Solutions Radio this Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock right here on KSL. News Radio 102.7.
What's holding you back from learning the language you've always wanted to know?
Too hard. Takes too long.
Not with Babbel. Babbel's lessons take just 15 minutes a day.
15 minutes isn't long.
Nope. And they're fun. So you don't realize you're learning a language, but you are. In 3 weeks, you're able to start having conversations. And Babbel's lessons are built around real life.
And with Babbel, it isn't hard. It's perfect.
Start learning a new language today. Go to Babbel.com. That's BABBEL.com.
My little brother's friends have been camped out at our place for 2 days straight. 3. It's because of the Xfinity 10G network. Internet that can handle a house full of screens at once, with basically no interruptions. And it's only getting faster. When I was their age, internet like this was a pipe dream.
You sound like my grandpa.
Please go home.
The next generation 10G network only from Xfinity. The future starts now. Now through March 21st, new customers can get 1.2 gigabit internet on the Xfinity 10G network for just $25 a month for 2 years with no annual contract and Wi-Fi equipment included when you add Xfinity Mobile with unlimited data at regular rates. Go to Xfinity.com/10G, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today. Requires paperless plan and auto-pay with stored bank account. Restrictions apply. Taxes and fees extra. Xfinity Mobile requires Xfinity Internet. After promo, regular rates apply to internet service and Wi-Fi equipment. Actual speeds vary.
At Social Security, we are always thinking of ways to save you time and make things easier. That's why we created My Social Security. Opening a My Social Security account gives you secure access to your personal record and interactive tools tailored for you. You can see if you are eligible to receive benefits, view spousal benefit estimates, and compare retirement benefit estimates at different ages or dates when you want to start receiving benefits. Already receiving benefits? Use your account to change your address, set up or change direct deposit, get a proof of income letter, and more. In most states, you can also request a replacement Social Security card. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
When my parents were still alive, I would always fly back east for Christmas.
A Christmas Wish from KSL News Radio.
You know, sometimes I'd spend it at my parents' house, sometimes my parents would go to my brother's house, but it was a wonderful way for us to be together. And I know some people might be like me, that they might be missing someone this year who passed, whether this year or at some time in the past. And it can be a little tender at Christmas. I understand that. Maybe a little extra love for those folks.
And even though there's an empty chair at the Christmas dinner table, those memories will endure. And it's a good time to remind everybody that, you know, it's not about all the stuff that's under the Christmas tree. That stuff goes away, but the memories will be lasting. And so we hope that for you and your family, if you have or are missing somebody in your family this Christmas, that you'll hold tight to those memories.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas from Tim and Amanda and everyone at KSL News Radio.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, a former TikTok influencer accused of abusing her children is scheduled for a court appearance this morning. Second, a BYU graduate has been stuck in Mexico for almost 5 months because of a clerical error. And third, Pope Francis has approved a policy that will allow priests to bless same-sex couples, but it's not the same as a Catholic marriage. Right now, 28 degrees with fog in Salt Lake City. And back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic.
And welcome back to Dave and Dujanovic, except it's Morgan and Murray filling in for Dave and Debbie, who have the day. So, Taylor, I don't know that you know this about me because we've only met recently, but...
Oh, Leah, we've been co-hosts and friends for about a year now.
Yeah. But my grandpa, so Grandpa Murray,
Grandpa
was,
Murray.
He was Grandpa Murray.
I love it.
Had dementia. So like the last 10 to 15 to 20 years of his life was a cognitive decline, which is really hard in a family. He is the reason I am a political scientist, right? Like I grew up talking with him about all things, you know, and it's just hard. And at the holidays, it's especially hard, right? Because your family member is there. But I will tell you, my dad was his primary caretaker for a lot of it because my dad was the person who stayed in the city where Grandpa lived. Does that make sense? So most of the family had left. And so watching my father be the caretaker to his father, right? It's just really hard, right?
And I think so many of our listeners, Leah, can relate to your experience here. I know that I can. I had My grandparents, my mother's parents, grandma and grandpa, both struggled with dementia and Alzheimer's and had a similar decline. And my mother, who is here locally, was their primary caregiver. And watching my mother go through that with her parents was difficult. And I know that so many of our listeners can relate. And it's certainly an important topic this time of year. As you said, Leah, when families are together.
Right.
And we're going to be around not only those in our families who are struggling with dementia and Alzheimer's, but they're caregivers, right?
Right. So we have got with us Jeremy Cunningham, the Public Policy Director of the Alzheimer's Association, to have a conversation about all of this. Welcome to the show, Jeremy.
Thanks so much.
All right, so here's the deal. Nearly 7 million Americans live with Alzheimer's, and kind of, you know what, Jeremy, like there's some gifts that are maybe a good idea, and maybe there's some gifts as we head into whatever holiday you celebrate in this season are maybe not a great idea. And then also thinking about what caretakers might need. So, Jeremy, walk us through first, when we're thinking about people who have dementia or Alzheimer's, what are things that we should be looking for in Target or wherever it is that we go shopping for this holiday season?
Right. And I think most consumers now are shopping on Amazon.
Oh, you're right. Thank you.
But, and all joking aside, when we are looking at gifts and things, realize that your loved one is still in there, depending on where they are on their dementia journey. But, one of the things that I recently saw, and I loved it, was a photo calendar of the family. And it had significant dates, and it had a little bit of information, like historic information, like Grandma and Grandpa got married on this day, or so-and-so's birthday, they were born in. And so there were photos. There was a little paragraph or so under the photograph.
Like a caption of what was happening. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought that was genius. I think books are really good. Really knowing where the person is on their journey, is important. I would tend to stay away from like power tools, things like that. My grandfather actually had dementia, and one of his sons bought him a skill saw.
Oh boy.
Well, he would get lost going down the hallway.
Yeah.
At the end. This man was a really wonderful woodsman.
Right.
He did a lot of wood crafting, and he had a full shop in the basement. Well, they had to put a lock on the door because they were afraid he would endanger himself or hurt himself. So I think you need to look at where the person is. I keep saying that on their journey. I think books, I think audiobooks, I think interactive things.
Yeah, and Jeremy, what I hear totally in what you're saying is, you want to respect the dignity of the person, right? So
Exactly.
Your uncle, I can totally see being like, well, Dad is a woods workman, right? And so I'm going to respect what he cares about. And like that saw is a really bad idea in that moment.
And it would have been a great gift 5 or 10 years before.
Exactly.
But at that moment, it was really challenging. So let's look at some other things. You can still do family activities. You've just got to scale them back, possibly.
Yeah. And we have a list of some ideas.
Right.
We're with Jeremy Cunningham here in studio at KSL News Radio. Jeremy is the Public Policy Director of the Alzheimer's Association. And Jeremy, in the list of some of these suggestions, you have broken it into different stages. Good gift ideas for those dealing with the early stages of dementia, Alzheimer, and then those dealing with middle, later stages. Can you kind of walk us through some of those ideas?
Well, for example, someone in early stage, self-care things, lotions, makeup, things like that, right? As the disease progresses, audiobooks, books, movies, things that they would enjoy. The calendar idea.
Love that one.
Things family related, things that could possibly jog their memory, right? And then as the disease progresses, a lot of people get agitated. So how about a weighted fake fur blanket? Things that are going to give them comfort. Loose-fitting clothing that will give them comfort, that they don't have to worry about tying, things like that. Think cozy, think comfortable when you're in that stage. And then let's talk about the caregivers.
Yes, please.
It takes generally 4 people, a full-time caregiver and 3 individual people to come in and help. So full-time caregivers get burned out, especially when they're the sandwich generation or they're trying to do the festivities of the holidays and the traditions and things. One of the best things you could do is give them a gift certificate.
Yeah.
Get a massage. Get them some respite.
A little personal time.
Time. I mean, just the fact to be able to leave and go get a haircut is huge, let alone Christmas shopping or simply going to the post office. Small things that we take for granted every day. Sometimes we even look at them as a hassle.
So let me ask you a question here, Jeremy, because I feel like if I were to tell you about my dad, he would have always said, I'm fine. And I'm taking care of my father, and it's fine. And I'm fine, right? It was always fine, right? So we have to be, I think, vigilant without, again, respecting the dignity of the caretaker. Does that make sense?
Because, literally, the caretaker will have a 36%, on average, 36% chance of dying before the individual. So people are dying because they're fine. I mean, I know that sounds harsh, right?
Yeah.
But they want to keep the family traditions going. They want to keep the activities going and things because that's a sense of normality. You can still do things. You just have to scale them back. Or if you're going to have 20 of your relatives, break it out over several days and have maybe 5 at a time.
Yeah.
And cut back the meals. There's no reason you have to do these extravagant things. And if you choose to, later, you can do those things again. But
True.
For this time period, be kind to yourself. And as family members, step up and help that caregiver.
We're with Jeremy Anderson here Jeremy Cunningham in studio, Public Policy Director for the Alzheimer's Association. Jeremy, put in a plug for the Alzheimer's Association and what kind of resources you have for caregivers and for those for whom they're caring. Where can our listeners go and get more incredible tips like the ones you've shared so far?
We have an amazing website that you can go to. It's alz.org/Utah, or you can just go to alz.org for a wealth of information. We do programming. We do funding for research. We're the third largest, the Alzheimer's Association is the third largest funder of research for Alzheimer's and related dementias in the world, second only to the federal government and the Chinese government.
Jeremy Cunningham, thank you so much for joining us today and having this conversation. And a little bit hit me in my heart, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, listeners, when we come back, we will have a conversation with current Salt Lake County Mayor Jenny Wilson, who announced her campaign for re-election today. Stay with us.
It's 11:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. We have breaking news you heard moments ago here on KSL News Radio. YouTuber Ruby Franke has pleaded guilty to 4 of the 6 child abuse counts against her. KSL News Radio legal analyst Grace Gorish says that's likely to make the case against her former business partner, Jody Hildebrandt, stronger.
Both she and her co-defendant, Jody Hildebrandt, had been charged for several months now with 6 counts of what we call aggravated sexual abuse of a child. Those are second-degree felonies. They were both giving every indication that they were contesting the charges.
The 2 women were accused of child abuse after the removal of 2 of Franke's children from Hildebrandt's home back in August in their town of Ivans. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. A satellite flies off to the asteroid Bennu, landed on the Utah Test and Training Range in September of this year. And now, 3 months later, scientists still studying what they brought back. KSL News Radio's Dale Spalding has that story.
Space.com reports the asteroid has mixtures of magnesium, sodium, and phosphorus that scientists haven't seen like this before. It sounds like something out of a bad sci-fi movie. A satellite brings back samples to learn the origins of the universe, and things go awry. Thing is, scientists figured they'd be able to learn something concrete by now.
And the project's principal investigator, Dante Loretta, says the cosmochemistry community is going to go to town on this. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day, but just by 25 points right now, and the NASDAQ is up 99 points. Our KSL weather, the inversion just won't go away. That's next. KSL News Time, 11:31.
We have enough people running around Broadcast House at 4 in the morning to field a football team.
Producers, reporters, the traffic team, and us.
This is Tim and Amanda.
Join us each morning from 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Imagine how inconvenient your life would be without power. No lights, no refrigeration, no heating or cooling, and no electronics. But with a Generac home standby generator, you'll have the power when you need it most. Generac generators automatically provide backup after sensing a power outage, so your life goes on uninterrupted. Schedule a free quote today with Genco Generators, your premier Generac service dealer in Utah. Call 801-295-0872 or online at gencogenerators.net.
If it's out of sight, it's out of mind. Even though that's an old adage, it's still very true today. And it's especially true of your old 401k. I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth, asking you to get that old 401k in sight and out of the company you no longer work for. But don't roll it into your new 401k. That could be one of the worst things you do. Of course that's easy. But when has the easiest way ever been the best way? Instead, call Trajan Wealth and learn about all of your options, including a way to earn an upfront bonus of up to 25% for your future income just for rolling it over. That's right. You could earn up to a 25% bonus for your retirement income just for rolling that 401k over with Trajan Wealth. Don't roll that 401k into your new company plan. Don't do it without calling Trajan Wealth first. Call 801-899-7600 or visit TrajanWealth.com.
Guarantees are based on the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company.
Dear Santa, thank you so much for remembering me this year. Christmas was the best. Thank you for the shoes, and I love the coat you brought. It's so cute and so warm.
At KSL, it's our hope that every child will have a warm and joyful holiday season. Please donate generously to KSL's Quarters for Christmas.
Every dollar raised goes to buy shoes and warm clothes for Utah children in need. Give what you can at KSLQuarters.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union's new Dividend Plus checking account. Here's Lynn Thomas.
Well, Dan, as you make your way across the Wasatch Front freeways this morning, looking really grand right now. No delays coming up through Spanish Fork and Provo all the way around the point of the mountain into the downtown ramps in style. You do have some slowing on the Bangerter Highway on the north end of things near Glendale as you make your way south and northbound from 3500 south. Otherwise, Davis and Weber counties are wide open. I-80 sailing along all the way from Wanship down to the city, and likewise Stansbury Park past the lake to the airport. Western Nut Company holiday gift centers are located in Layton Hills, Newgate in Ogden, the shops at Southtown and Sandy, Fashion Place Mall in Murray, and University Place in Orem. I'm Len Thomas in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, we're looking at several days of bad air quality and AM fog, and it'll be Saturday before the weather changes enough to get rid of the inversion conditions. Right now, 28 degrees with fog persisting. I'm Dan Bomas, KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Welcome back to Dave and Dujanovic. You are with Taylor Morgan and Leah Murray. Morgan and Murray filling in today for Dave and Debbie, who have the day off. Leah, it is that time of year when we are looking ahead to what elections we'll see next year. There's a lot of announcements.
It's my
of
favorite
who's
time
running.
of year.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun, not just because of the holiday season.
Oh, yeah,
but
that too.
it is also kicking
yeah.
off the political season. And we had an exciting announcement from Salt Lake County Mayor Jenny Wilson officially announced this morning that she will be seeking another term in 2024. And we are so happy to have Salt Lake County Mayor Jenny Wilson joining the program with us now. Mayor Wilson, thank you so much for joining the show.
Well, thank you. I'm really excited to be on with you this morning.
Okay, so Mayor Wilson, you announced earlier And so clearly you like the gig you have, right? You want to run again. You're doing this again. What are you most proud of as what you've accomplished as mayor of the county?
Well, thank you for that question. It's been an interesting 6 years for me and for our community. We've had a rough go of it, going through COVID, a windstorm, the floods have just passed this past year. I don't know how many emergency declarations I signed, but it's in the dozens. And I didn't anticipate that when I entered this office several years ago. But I've learned from that. Our community's grown from that. And I'm just excited about the next few years ahead. I'm excited about the coming year. And then hopefully if the public decides I'm the right person for another 4, I'll look forward to that as well.
So where do you see are any issues in the county? And I totally hear you. You just listed, I forgot those 6 years were, it's kind of like looking forward and not looking back at like how hard it has been. I kind of forgot how much really landed in Salt Lake County over the last little bit. Where are things you think that you could improve? Does that make sense? So there are things as mayor you're looking to work on going forward?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, COVID upended our world, and it certainly did this county, and we're coming out of that. I mean, COVID's still a thing. Many people have had it recently, and but the impacts of several years ago with the initial virus and then Omicron really reset our community in a lot of ways, and we're coming back, and it's exciting. And I always tell people, we are addressing, many of us, day in and day out, the challenges surrounding homelessness. We need to build more housing, and there's some important issues as it relates to our growth, some exciting, some challenging. I'm excited about the Olympic Games announcement for 34. We have to plan for that. So, really growth management and then dealing with the new normal post-COVID. We are one of the strongest economies in the nation right now, but we still have our challenges. And I'm really working to make sure no one's left behind, thinking about families. I dropped a video today and really focused on one of the exciting new initiatives that the council approved that I recommended, and that's free rec center access for all kids. That's coming up this summer. Excited about that. So it's a challenging time, but it's an exciting time for us all.
So, Mary Wilson, you just talked about the council, and I'm wondering, as you say that, can you talk to us a little bit about what it's like working day to day with a Republican-led county council? You are a Democrat, but it sounds like you can still get things done. Can you just talk to us about that relationship?
Yeah, well, absolutely. And evidence of that is the budget I recommended wasn't modified too much, and we passed it unanimously, Republicans and Democrats. So there are times when there's a difference of opinion, but having served on the county council for 10 years, I know what it's like to be in their shoes, and I respect them all. And I'm a Democrat and have worked with Republican majorities on the council for all years except for 2 of my time in office. So it's not new to me, and I think it's important in politics, and it's important neighbor to neighbor. Let's set our partisanship aside. Let's work together. Let's accomplish things together. And I am incredibly excited about the chance to serve another 4 years. And I'm also really committed to making sure that we preserve this incredible place that we have. And exciting times ahead again, but we do have challenges here in our community.
Yeah, and Mayor Wilson, in your announcement, you talk about the 2034 Olympics and preparing for that. One of the things I think I'm aware of, so correct me if I'm wrong, is that the Olympic Committee is looking for Salt Lake City and Salt Lake County to be, cleaning up our air a little bit, right, Mayor? And so I'm looking out the window, and I drove in this morning, and it's very much an inversion, very foggy. Do you have any ideas of what your role and how you can work on that particular issue going forward?
Well, yes, of course. And we are doing everything we can on both air and water right now, both critical issues. On air quality, I think one of the biggest challenges is the health impacts from poor air are really diffused. We have industry involved. We have state regulatory. We have some authority at Salt Lake County, but I continue to work with many partners to assure that we are investing everywhere we can at Salt Lake County. We've been part of and this is the easiest way to describe it, I guess, a Cash for Clunkers program, where we can fund and support people in cleaning up their automobiles. We continue to support in healthy homes, which include retrofitting, so our homes are polluting less. We continue to work with our state regulators about where and how, and with industry, how can we make sure businesses are cleaner and cars are cleaner. So it's advocacy from the federal government on down, where we are trying very much at Salt Lake County to take advantage of every dollar we can get to put it to good use on air quality. And then on water, we've done an incredible amount, both in terms of switching out our landscapes at Salt Lake County facilities, giving grants to communities, really pushing on water conservation, and making sure that we're doing our best as businesses, families, and that we actually walk the walk at Salt Lake County on those issues.
Yeah, and so Mary Wilson, I love how you talked about partnering with lots of organizations from the federal government on down. Can you talk to us about working with the Republican-dominated legislature coming in this upcoming session? Do you have any key goals in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, I continue to let the legislature know that for us to really do what we need to do to build more affordable housing and homelessness, we really need a consistent revenue stream. We do have federal money that comes to us for mental health issues, substance use purposes, housing. All of those challenges are related. We know that, and including our correctional system, both the state penitentiary, but also the Salt Lake County's jail and county jails throughout. So we look at the amount of challenge when it comes to people who have substance use disorder, but also mental health concerns. Often they don't qualify for housing. It's difficult to get an apartment. It's difficult to get work. So we at Salt Lake County are tackling each of those issues and trying to get the legislature to understand we could benefit from an additional ongoing revenue stream for housing and homelessness. And there are many other things we're working with the legislature on. We do every year. We want fair tax policy. I always enjoy this time of year as we prepare for the session. And, I've always felt that I should treat the legislature like I want to, treat my neighbor, with respect. We can work better together if we are focusing on things that we have in common and not the things that divide us, regardless of our party. And I enter into conversations with our governor, with our lieutenant governor, with all of our elected officials, regardless of party, including legislators, hoping that we can find that common ground.
Salt Lake County Mayor Jenny Wilson, thank you so much for joining Dave and Dujanovic today here on KSL News Radio. Thank you for your service as county mayor, and we wish you good luck in your upcoming campaign for re-election.
Thank you so much. It's good to be with you today.
Leah, coming up next in our last segment, we are going to have, I think, a really interesting conversation about what it could mean if you're a morning person. You might think it's always a good thing, Leah, but it turns out it might be an indicator of some more primitive instincts. Stay tuned for that conversation next.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Finally, Friday. Now you can hear Dave and Dujanovic 5 days a week.
Starting in January, Dave and Debbie will be on Fridays at 9.
Then the movie show from 11 to 1.
On KSL News Radio.
When it comes to your electrical system, do you know the warning signs to look for? What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and it's okay if you don't know, but here are a few things that you might not even realize could be a sign of a bigger problem. Wall plates that are hot to the touch, discoloration around switches or outlets, if you hear crackling or popping or buzzing around switches or outlets, a breaker that trips a lot, switches that feel loose when you operate them, if your lights dim or flicker when a major appliance comes on, if your plugs fall out of the wall easily. You know, you're not supposed to have to bend the prongs out on a plug just to get it to stay in the wall. If you notice any of these things, you should consider having a licensed electrician check your system out. If you don't know anyone, Any Hour Services has put together a radio-only special for any homeowners listening. One of our licensed electricians will perform a comprehensive electrical inspection and give you a full written report for only $29. but you have to mention this ad when you call. To schedule your comprehensive electrical inspection by a licensed electrician for only $29, call Any Hour Services at 801-443-7300. That's 801-443-7300. Any Hour Services.
Guys, does she need a little escape this year? Introducing Cozy Escape Pajamas from Pajamagram, America's PJ experts. These PJs are just the getaway she needs. So take that time off and plan a holiday staycation. Cozy Escape Pajamas make the perfect gift for your special someone who deserves a little rest and relaxation. Treat her to luxurious next-level cozy signature soft fleece. They're as light as a dream and will keep her oh so warm, like snuggling in her favorite blanket. She'll love to cuddle in Cozy Escape PJs on those extra chilly nights. With Pajamagram, you can even add gift packaging. Order now for guaranteed delivery by Christmas. She's missed out on a lot of things she loves this year, so this Christmas, give her the escape she deserves. These new PJs are selling fast, so order today. Go to pajamagram.com right now. That's pajamagram.com to order Cozy Escape Pajamas. Pajamagram.com.
My little brother's friends have been camped out at our place for 2 days straight. 3. It's because of the Xfinity 10G network. Internet that can handle a house full of screens at once, with basically no interruptions. And it's only getting faster. When I was their age, internet like this was a pipe dream.
You sound like my grandpa.
Please go home.
The next generation 10G network only from Xfinity. The future starts now. Now through March 21st, new customers can get 1.2 gigabit internet on the Xfinity 10G network for just $25 a month for 2 years with no annual contract and Wi-Fi equipment included when you add Xfinity Mobile with unlimited data at regular rates. Go to xfinity.com/10G, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today. Requires paperless plan and autopay with stored bank account. Restrictions apply. Taxes and fees extra. Xfinity Mobile requires Xfinity Internet. After promo, regular rates apply to internet service and Wi-Fi equipment. Actual speeds vary.
This is Derek Miller speaking on business. AMD Architecture, a woman-owned full-service design firm, prides themselves on truly understanding their clients' needs and finding creative solutions for even the most complex designs. Founder and principal, architect Angela Dean shares more.
I founded AMD Architecture in 1997 with the goal of providing quality architecture that is equally responsible to both clients and the greater environment. We find joy in approaching each project as a unique opportunity to explore creative, timeless, and sustainable solutions. With diverse projects spanning from the Wasatch Peaks to southern Utah deserts, we specialize in custom homes, historic preservation, commercial adaptive reuse, education, entertainment, and more. Our expertise in sustainable design ranges from off-grid straw bale homes to LEED Platinum certified medical clinics. In addition to our commitment to the environment through design, we prioritize our community and future workforce by providing scholarships and mentoring to students pursuing the field of architecture. We have contributed countless hours in pro bono design and volunteer efforts to organizations aimed at improving the well-being of our community. If you're looking for a design partner for your next build or remodel project, consider us for a healthy, functional, and creative design solution.
For the past 26 years, AMD Architecture has served Utah with a committed, talented, and creative staff determined to design sustainable and creative solutions. Learn more at the AMD Architecture website. I'm Derek Miller with the Salt Lake Chamber, speaking on business.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, a YouTube influencer accused of abusing her children has pleaded guilty to 4 of the 6 charges against her. Second, NASA scientists have opened the capsule brought back from an asteroid, but they're not really sure what was inside it. And third, our air quality stuck in an inversion pattern for what looks like the rest of the week. Right now, 32 degrees with fog in Salt Lake City. And back to Dave and Dujanovic on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic.
And welcome back to Dave and Dujanovic, except you've got me, Leah Murray, alongside my good friend Taylor Morgan filling in. So we are the Morgan and Murray version of Dave and Dujanovic.
Do you think we get along as well as Dave and Debbie do? Maybe better? I don't know. Dave and Debbie tend to like to get under one another's skin. And if you listen to Dave and Debbie, as our listeners obviously do.
This is the meta moment of the show.
I think they know what buttons to push, Leah. And so my worry about this segment here is I think that you and I have co-hosted off and on KSL at night, weekdays between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. here on KSL News Radio. But we've co-hosted on and off for about a year or so. I think you may know some of my buttons, Leah.
Yeah.
So,
here's what I'm just going to say to all of
listeners,
our
if
listeners.
I get a little fired up and defensive here in this segment, now you know why.
So last time, I can't remember the last time I got you going, Taylor, but it was about baseball. So I feel like I know some of your buttons.
I think you said something about how much you love the Yankees.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So
let's not go there.
Here's the deal. I'm just going to share with the universe. My favorite thing to do in the world is to sleep in the morning. It is not to wake up at 5 a.m. and go skiing like Taylor told me offline he likes to do. But for me, it's like, man, if I can just cuddle up in a blanket. And part of me really thinks the reason I became a college professor was so that I could guarantee at least 4 months of the year I didn't have to wake up early and be anywhere for
interesting.
work, right? So
What time are your classes at? You
They
teach political science. What
I
classes
do.
do you teach at Weber State University?
I teach all the American politics, political science classes,
Okay.
right? So like Congress, presidency, political parties, political behavior, all that kind of stuff. But what's funny is like legitimately, my first semester at Weber State, I had an 8 a.m. class every day. And I came in, I said, yeah, that's not going to work for me. The evals are not going to be good. And I've not taught before 9:30 since my first semester because I was like, part of this gig for me is to be able to sleep as late as I can in the morning.
It's a smart move. I should have perhaps
You
gone
gotta
to
think
Weber
about this
State
stuff.
University.
Yeah, you got to know your values and what you want to do. And the thing is, people look down on you for it. It's like people
For not being a morning person.
Correct. I think the whole
Yeah,
world, by the
yeah.
way, is designed for morning people. Like school starts at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
People are getting to work at 8 o'clock in the morning. And everyone's like proud of how early they rose in the morning. If you sleep in, they look at you like you're a lazy slug of
You
bed.
sound a little insecure here,
I'm not
Leah.
insecure, but
What
I'm just-
time on average? Okay, just give me a time. A week, not weekends. I'll give you that as a free pass on the weekends. But Monday through Fridays, if you could just pick an arbitrary time by which you would be up and out of bed and going every morning, what time would that be?
If I could choose it?
If you could choose it and not face any judgment, any backlash, nobody thought would
like
think
9
less of you.
a.m., man.
9 a.m.? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And my alarm goes off at 6:15 and I'm angry every day.
Oh.
Like I start the day just annoyed that the universe makes me get up so
What time do
early.
you go to bed?
Oh, like 11:30.
Maybe we should consider an earlier
Oh,
bedtime.
no, see, here it is, right there. So for those of us who are night owls, who function super well in the evening, the minute we say, like, I would like to get my 8 hours in, but I would like to be able to, you say, I need an earlier bedtime. But all of this, let's just set up for you, who is the morning person, who
I'm
told
an
me
aspirational morning
told
person.
me off the
Leah.
air that your favorite thing in the world to do is wake up super early and be the first person out there on the slopes, like skiing in the morning. Like I like to ski after lunch, right? Like I'd show up and be
But the
skiing
snow, but the
second half of
snow
the
is
day.
all sun crusted and
I
melted
know,
out.
I
It's
get
mushy
it,
by
I
then.
get it. So, but what I read yesterday, a new study that links DNA inherited from our extinct cousins to a propensity for being early risers. So the answer is all of you who like to wake up early in the morning, where your alarm goes up after you're already been awake and doing whatever it is your morning routine is, you are more genetically connected to the Neanderthals than those of us who are not morning people.
Now we're calling names. You're saying that because I aspire to wake up with the sunrise and get up and get moving, I'm perhaps more of a primitive
Correct.
life form. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct. You
I
are
don't
the
know.
part of you are the species that died out. So
wow.
maybe it is the case.
Or
that
perhaps that set the stage for softer, more modern humans to exist.
for us to kill you while
Wow.
you were
This took a dark turn very
while you were
quickly, Leah.
sleeping late at night, Taylor.
So
No, but I think it's really interesting. I just want to talk right here for a
Yeah,
second,
please.
right? So it's about biology. It's about genetics. So everything, like when I was pushing back and I was saying, you judge me for going to bed late and what I need is an earlier bedtime. And the thing is, actually, no, I'm genetically predisposed, Taylor, to be someone who's going to have a really hard time in the morning and be functioning like on all cylinders in the evening and late into the night. Whereas you might be someone who's falling asleep while you're watching Sunday Night Football and you're up super early this morning. And there's nothing morally wrong with me or morally better about you. It is just genetic code.
Well, I'm glad that you now have a new study to point to and make yourself feel that way. Of course, listeners, we are referring to a new study that was published last Thursday in the Journal of Genome Biology and Evolution. The study was led by Serena Tucci, an assistant professor of anthropology and evolutionary biology at Yale University. And again, this study is essentially giving the lazy folks in our lives permission to feel better about themselves, I think, Leah. Listen, get up early, get going. Early bird catches the worm is not, Leah, there's reasons why being a morning person is good, right? Am I wrong?
I don't know.
What are some advantages or disadvantages of being a morning person, Leah?
Well, first of all, what's really interesting about not being a morning person is actually studies have shown people who are not morning people are very successful because their entire life has been designed to make them get up in the morning, and they persist through that obstacle. And so you actually find that they do really well, like in college and in high school, because they've been annoyed every morning, right?
Yeah.
So there's some interesting stuff there.
And I know we've had conversations about this when it comes to schools, and teenagers definitely need more sleep than they're getting. I think there could be some advantages for some of our schools, maybe starting a little bit later in the day, busing and transportation and working parents. There's all kinds of issues and complications with that. I think getting more sleep is really an issue. I think that, just on average, we get a lot less sleep than we really need. I think that's fair to say, but
that's absolutely true, right? I mean, the answer is we all need more sleep. The problem is the universe has prescribed that the sleep needs to end at 6 a.m. So if you are someone whose circadian rhythm has you wide awake, does that make sense? Like at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, that 6 a.m. is really difficult.
Well, really, Leah, this all comes down to a personal pet policy for me, and that is we just need to get rid of daylight savings time. I am barely adjusting still.
I feel
from
like
the
we had
switch
this
in
conversation
November.
around it.
We did, and
because I love sleeping in October, and I was
I'm
like, don't
going
take
to
it away.
use this study to help lobby public officials to finally just end the silliness. Will you support me?
I will always support you, Taylor.
Thank you.
But behind your back, I might tell people that you're wrong about things.
Yeah. Call me a caveman all you want.
You are a Neanderthal.
Thank you. I do enjoy meat. Love a good steak. Does that play in?
I don't know. That wasn't part of this study.
I would like to add that to the
We'll
study.
have to add that to the study. Taylor, it has been a wonderful 3 hours with you. I enjoy spending the morning having conversations with you. I hope our listeners didn't miss Dave and Dujanovic too much. I think they're back after the break as well.
Yeah, definitely. Really enjoy doing this show with you, Leah. Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Coming up next, we're going to have Maria Chaleos here with the KSL Afternoon News.